Y'all ready to go? Jimmy. Ready? Call this board meeting to order. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to start off by saying I know Miss Hannah Mason can't make it tonight. She is out of state. I don't know about Mr. Angel, but Miss Mason wanted me to let everyone know that she could not make tonight. We'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Dr. Aguilar, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? And then a moment of silence, please. I'll ask our superintendent. Ma'am, do you have any opening comments?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, staff, and everyone in attendance this evening. Welcome back to our boardroom. It's nice to see you all this evening. I would like to begin my comments by announcing that Ms. Pamela Sorensen, English teacher at Karen Crowe High School, has been named a semifinalist in the 2021 Teacher of the Year program by the Louisiana Department of Education. Ms. Sorensen is a teacher, chair of the English department at Karen Crowe High School. A few years ago, while working with the emerging schools in our district, I had the opportunity to observe Ms. Sorensen in her classroom teaching English at Karen Crowe High School. I was very impressed and knew at that time that we were very fortunate to have such a talented educator working with our students. Congratulations on this recognition, Ms. Sorensen, and good luck to you in the finals. The state of Louisiana has extended the deadline for families to apply for the Pandemic Electronic Benefit Transfer Program by 1 week from June 8th to June 15th. June 15th is the final application deadline for the program. For more information, please visit our website at www.lpssonline.com. I am pleased to announce that 29 students were awarded a total of $34,000 in scholarships through the Superintendent's Scholarship Committee. The scholarship money is generally raised through the fundraising efforts of the Superintendent's annual golf tournament held in the spring of the previous year. The committee was able to award scholarships to all qualifying students who applied with monies from the previous year's golf tournament. With the current COVID situation, staff has made the decision to postpone this year's tournament and will resume the Superintendent's Golf Tournament in the spring of 2021. Thank you to the many organizations and individuals who contributed to this meaningful event, which makes it possible for LPSS students to receive well-deserved financial support for their post-secondary career. Recently, 25 Louisiana educators have earned the distinction of being named to the Renaissance National Honors Roll for significant reading achievement of their students through the Accelerated Reader Program. I am proud to announce that all 25 educators are from the Lafayette Parish school system. 24 educators are from Ernest Gallette Elementary School and 1 from Marshall Bio Elementary School. Congratulations to the students earning AR points for their reading efforts and the LPSS educators who received National Honor Roll. Robust and engaging AR programs contribute to improved school performance, and students achieve at higher levels than those where reading is not promoted. At its upcoming launch in the new location in August, the Lafayette Online Academy which will now be located on Ambassador Caffrey Parkway, will provide students in our district with convenient access to a high-quality online education. To complement an award-winning curriculum, LOA's Learning Lab provides students with access to local teachers, remote teaching and test proctoring, and full access to all support services offered by the Lafayette Parish school system. Lafayette Online Academy students have the opportunity to participate in extracurricular activities offered at their zone schools. Students can participate in sports, experience the memories of prom, and even graduate with their class at the Cajun Dome. Families interested in an online learning option for their children should enroll now at www.onlinelafayette.com. In closing, staff has spent the last several months preparing for various start of school scenarios. Of course, our hope and our goal is that we will be able to begin school in the traditional manner we have in the past. In the event that a traditional start is not advisable, we are planning other possible scenarios. An alternate learning scenario is a blended hybrid learning model where smaller groups of students, Group A and Group B, report to school on alternate days, then continue their learning from home on the other days. A third scenario would come into play if we would have a complete closure of particular schools or all schools throughout the district. This is the virtual distant learning model where all learning is done online. We have, through CARES Act money, ordered the necessary technology to support student and teacher needs in this model, and we are working with community leaders on improving connectivity to the internet for students identified as not having it at this time. In all scenarios mentioned above, we are confident that we are in a better position to support continued learning in the event that we face full or partial closures of school in the future. Our start date for students is August 13th, 2020. On or around June 20th, districts will receive additional state guidance and recommendations, and at that time we will be in a better position to move forward with a more definite teaching and learning plan. This concludes my comments, Mr. Latchley. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Trosclair. Item 2.1 is litigation, discussion, and/or action concerning pending litigation in the matter of Amy Thibodaux, individually and on behalf of her minor daughter, Layla Roberts, and Shane Roberts on behalf of his minor daughter, Layla Roberts, versus Byron Andrews and Lafayette Parish School Board, docket number 20175637, Division I, 15th Judicial District Court, Lafayette Parish. I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session.
Mr. President, I move that the board go into the executive session to discuss the matter of Amy Thibodaux individually and on behalf of her minor daughter, Layla Roberts, and Shane Roberts on behalf of his minor daughter, Layla Roberts, versus Byron Andrews and the Lafayette Parish School Board.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mrs. Santani, a second by Ms. Morrison. Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. Motion carries. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to go into executive session. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to go back into regular session.
Mr. President, I move that the board return to a regular session.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Centani, seconded by Ms. Morrison. All those in favor of going back into executive session, say aye. All those opposed, say no. All right, we're back in executive session. I will entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the advice of counsel.
I'll second.
We have a motion by Mr. Centani and a second by Ms. Morrison. Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. It's ready. If not, we can do a voice vote.
Eight for, none against.
Motion carries. We'll move on to the next section of the agenda, which is our information items. 3.1, Employee Services Personnel Changes, June. Ms. Gardner or Mr. Mouton?
Good evening, Madam Secretary and to the Board. It is with my honor that I am pleased to announce the promotion of John V. Mouton to the position of the Director of Employee Services. Mr. Mouton will work as part of the district leadership team to oversee the Employee Services Department and guide the human resource insurance benefit operations. Responsibilities will include the oversight of retirement and other employee benefits and compensation, employee recruitment, and onboarding of all our new staff. He is also tasked with focusing on diversity and inclusion, retention of top talent, and investigating employee grievances and/or complaints. For the past 9 years, Mr. Mouton has served as the principal of Broussard Middle School. He has been employed with the Lafayette Parish School System for 19 years and has held previous positions as an assistant principal at LJ Alma and Leap Remediation principal and also a teacher at Scott Middle. During his tenure, Mr. Mouton has been recognized as the Lafayette Parish School System 2016, 18, 19, and 20 Middle School Principal of the Year and has represented the district in the Louisiana Department of Education's Principal of the Year. In 2018, the Louisiana State Department of Education recognized him as a semi-finalist for Principal of the Year for his outstanding administrator capabilities and his positive impact on students. Mr. Mouton also serves as a member of the Southern Association of Colleges, Schools Commission on Elementary and Middle Schools, Leela Leadership Induction National Institute of School Leaders, and has also achieved the Leader in Me Lighthouse status. He holds a Master's of Education in Administration and a Bachelor of Arts in Education from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette. It is my honor to introduce Mr. Mouton, our Director of Employee Services.
Good evening. To the members of the board, Mr. Lachele as the president, to Ms. Trosclair and your staff, thank you so much for this awesome opportunity. It has been a pleasure serving as the principal at Broussard Middle School for the last 9 years. I will truly, truly miss it. All of the faculty, the children, and the community of Broussard have been really, really wonderful for me. I look forward to this next step in my career. I am so thankful that I've been given this opportunity, and I believe in customer service. I believe in doing right by our employees, and I believe that people have the right to come to work and be treated fairly as they are trying to do their job. So I do take the position of Director of Employee Services very seriously. We will be providing services, and that's why the name was changed from Human Resources to Employee Services. Our entire department is built around helping our staff and helping the district to find the most qualified teachers and employees to be in schools, in classrooms, to affect and impact the learning of all of our children. So again, I look forward to this new position. Everybody in the department has been wonderful. They've been very, very helpful and very welcoming to me, and I am so, so happy and thankful again for this opportunity. So thank you, Ms. Trosclair, for giving me this opportunity. My first official duty as director is to introduce another director. So, I am pleased to announce that the Lafayette Parish School System has hired Ms. Desiree Early as the Director of Risk Management. Most recently, Ms. Early served as the Director of Risk and Administration while also serving as the Corporate Secretary for PetroQuest Energy, an oil field exploration and production company. Having a 17-year distinguished career in the field of administration and risk management, Ms. Early also has an extensive background in corporate governance and legal matters such as claims management, lawsuits, accident reporting, and coordination with federal and state regulatory agencies. As the Director of Risk Management, Ms. Early will be part of the district leadership team and will supervise the employees of the operations of the Risk Management Department to ensure compliance with all federal and state regulations. She will oversee workers' compensation management, the district's health and safety program, in addition to monitoring new and proposed legislation, ensuring the district against losses, and responding to public records requests. Ms. Early holds a Master's of Business Administration from the University of Louisiana at Lafayette, as well as a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration. She has professional accreditations from the Insurance Institute of America as an associate in risk management, certifications from the Louisiana State Paralegal and National Paralegal, and is a notary public. She is a member of Risk Insurance Management Society, Louisiana Notary Association, Louisiana State Paralegal Association, Lafayette Paralegal Association, National Association of Legal Assistants, Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance, and the Society of Human Resources Management. In addition, she is actively involved in the community. She served as a volunteer at CASA, those are court-appointed special assistants, served as an advocate, and currently serves as a board member for Hearts of Hope. She also volunteers at Asbury United Methodist Church. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our new Director of Risk Management, Ms. Desiree D. Early.
I just want to thank the board and Ms. Trosclair and Ms. Gardner for taking a risk and stepping outside of the school system and looking at someone from the public and corporate sector. I have been here just a few weeks now, and you guys can't imagine the adventure it's been interviewing, being hired, and starting a job in the middle of a pandemic. So it's been fun. People have been so helpful. Right now, I'm really looking at everything that's in place, putting fresh eyes on everything to see what we can use that's in place and grow and make things more proactive and just more efficient in risk management. And I would encourage, if you guys are aware of something that needs to be looked at, because I am new to the school system, I would appreciate any phone call in that we can look at and maybe make things better in risk management to where we're not taking on risk we shouldn't. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate the opportunity, and I truly am excited. I have to tell you guys, I'm having fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations, Ms. Early, and Mr. Mouton, congratulations, sir. Very well deserved. Next item, 3.2, request for information regarding contracting with minority-owned businesses. Vice President Morrison, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. A couple of weeks ago, we had a meeting with Transportation and Facilities, and the conversation came up about minority contracts. And so what I would like to know the number of minority contracts we have in place currently, and for us to look outside the district and other districts to see how they handle minority contracts. I've been given information that some of them have like a percentage that is allocated to minorities, and just would like to know more about that. So that is my request, and also Mr. Elroy supports this, and actually it was his idea at the Transportation and Facilities meeting where he talked about possibly having a percentage, but we want to know more information about what we're currently doing. So that's my request. Thank you. Mr. Elroy, would you like to add more to that, please?
Yes, let me see. There is somewhat of a blueprint that's already out there, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel, but we want to take our time and make sure that we're doing it right as far as percentage, population percentage, money percentage, whatever the case may be. The airport has done extensive work as far as setting up that type of work, and we might reach out to them to see how they've done it, and we'll be getting in contact with some people there to see how we can work that out. But I will be getting information to whomever, Billy or whoever else, or Carl, to see how we can work on the legal matter as well, to see how we can work it out so we can make sure that we're on the right page and we do it the right way.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Morrison and Mr. Broussard. We look forward to getting the information back and working with y'all to make this happen. Next item is 3.3, summary of energy costs. Dr. Chasson.
Can everyone hear me clearly? Okay. This was just a request to take a look at our fuel and heat and water and sewer and electricity costs. It was pointed out to me by a gentleman how much we inevitably spend every year, and it was something I was kind of oblivious to. So I just wanted to get a summary of it, and they've provided it for us. And just to let all the board members know, the gentleman mentioned to me, hey, you guys could save a whole lot of money if you possibly look at renegotiating your costs electricity-wise, and it wasn't something that I was even remotely aware we could do. So I'll be looking at it in the near future to try and save us some money.
Is that it, Dr. Chasson? Thank you, sir. We look forward to what comes out of this. 3.4 is finance information regarding April and May 2020 sales tax collections and related proposed course of action. I think we've all been waiting for this. Mr. Guidry?
Yes, so what we've seen so far during the past 2 months, more specifically the months of April and May, of course, were declines or decreases from April and May of last year. For the month of April, there was a decrease in total of about 1.2 million in the month of from April of last year. In the month of May, it was about 1.7 million of a decrease from last year. And so basically, and these totals represent the impact to the entire school district. There's a portion that relates to the general fund, a portion that relates to the 2002 sales tax. These decreases are at the school district level. But nonetheless, point I'm making is we have 2 months of collections. And with the restrictions and the transitions that we're going through as we move forward and basically pull out of the more the stricter requirements, from the emergency proclamations, we should hopefully see a decrease in the decreases, so to speak, an improvement. But still, not enough information to really, historical information to really project what impact or get a feel for what impact the pandemic is going to have on our collections for next year. And that's what we're trying to get a feel for. So our historical collections really are on a good basis. There was a report put out by the Louisiana Legislative Auditor's Office, state of Louisiana, from the revenue projection meetings they have. Basically, it's a meeting of state economists, and what they did was they put together a document that projected the decreases for every parish in the state. Not only every parish, but more specifically the school boards, the municipalities, and parish governments. So in taking a look at the projections for Lafayette Parish School Board, the sales tax collections, property tax collections, that sort of thing, there were three scenarios. The first scenario was an average scenario. And that particular scenario produced a projected decrease of 6.6%, or $6.6 million total impact. Scenario 2 they refer to in that report as the pessimistic scenario, and that reflected a projected decrease of 10.4% in our revenues, local revenues, which equates to about $9.5 million. And then in scenario 3, which they refer to as their optimistic scenario, it reflected a decrease or projected decrease of 3.6% or $3.3 million. So this sort of gives us a range based on this report of $3.3 million. If you look at the optimistic scenario, all the way to $9.5 million. If we look at the pessimistic scenario, realizing that pessimistic doesn't mean worst case, so it could even go beyond this, just depending on how well we transition as our businesses begin to open up. But nonetheless, using these numbers as a basis, we came up with some projections with how we would proceed in addressing these expected or anticipated decreases. So for fiscal year 2020, it's the year that we're in now. We'll be closing out June 30. What we're proposing here is we are expecting projecting a surplus for this fiscal year. And part of that surplus is due to the fact that from point of sales tax revenues, we're actually ahead of budget or doing better than budget until April and May. So we have that as sort of an offset. Now our actual collections are still below budget, but it doesn't reflect the 1.2 million and the 1.7 million that I mentioned earlier, because from a budgetary standpoint, when we can those differences, when we compared it to last year's numbers, when we compare it to the budgeted numbers, we're at about 600,000 behind budget, so not as significant. So that's one reason we feel that it lends itself to a projected surplus. The other thing, a main contributing factor, is for 2.5 months, our schools were closed for the most part. Students weren't at the schools. We still had staff there, but at a much reduced level of operational capacity. So as a result, we did not expend what we typically would expend to to open our buildings, from a utility standpoint, from a transportation standpoint, so on and so forth. So we feel that those are going to be some offsets and will actually contribute to a surplus. What we're proposing is that we take $4.5 million of that surplus and transfer it to the self-funded construction fund, more specifically to the line item committed school site renovations and replacements for the 3 schools, Prairie, Carencro Heights, and Lafayette High School. In essence, we would do it ahead of plan. So in 2020, we would make that transfer. Then in 2021, what we would propose is that if the reduction, the actual reduction in sales tax collections require an offset in order for us to balance our general fund budget, then we would propose leaving the budget line items in place, more specifically the transfer from the general fund to self-funded for those 3 schools, the $4.5 million, leaving the budget line item in place, but not actually making the transfer. What that does is the 4.5 that would have been transferred in 20 it's a cumulative number. It carries forward each year. So it gets us to where we would have gotten in 21 had we not done that and actually made the transfer. So we would keep it in the budget, not make the transfer in 21. However, at the end of 21, the increase to that particular commitment for those schools would still be the same as though the transfer would have been made. However, we get the benefit of the offset in the general fund of $4.5 million. The other recommendation or the other proposal we'd like for the board to consider is each year we budget for the sales tax fund to transfer $2.5 million to the self-funded construction fund and $2.5 million to our capital improvements funds. So a total of $5 million. We're proposing that we leave the budget line items in. And the reason we do that is it serves as a placeholder so that when we go to budget for the next year, it's still on the radar. We don't forget about it, so to speak. Not that I think there's any danger of it being forgotten about when you have as many folks that are looking at it to make sure that it occurs, but it keeps it in the budget so we can see it, and when we're doing 22's budget, we take a look at and roll that forward. It's sort of similar to the discussion we just had. So the transfers aren't made, would not be made, budget line items would remain intact. So in essence, that's $5 million that would end up in the general fund as an offset, if needed. If it's not needed, if our sales tax collections, if we do better than what these scenarios are, then we'd go ahead and make the transfers. We can make those transfers anytime during the year. But if the year does progress and we recognize something within these ranges in terms of a decrease in sales tax collections, then that's a $5 million offset in the general fund. $5 million plus the $4.5 million we discussed earlier, that's $9.5 million. That's a pretty significant offset, if not a complete offset, against the scenarios that we talked about. It basically takes care of the pessimistic scenario addressed by the state. So one other thing I wanted to mention is within the self-funded construction fund and within the capital improvements fund, we always put 1 year of that transfer, that $2.5 million transfer to capital, the $2.5 million transfer of self-funded construction. We set up a reserve, so we always have 1 year ahead of us. We want to make sure, no matter what, that we have funding to take care of our minimal capital needs in the subsequent year. So if you look at the reserve for fiscal year 22, which is not the year we're about to enter, but the year beyond that, those reserves can actually cover and transfer $2.5 million that wasn't transferred from the sales tax fund into self-funded construction, into capital improvements funds, to where, in essence, the capital improvement funds and the self-funded construction funds still receive the $2.5 million that should have come from sales tax. Instead, it's coming from the reserve for 22's budget. And once you back those out, once you reallocate those funds to 21, the reserves for 22 are still adequate to provide the 2.5 million to self-funded and capital improvements in 22. It's adequate to cover in 21, and it's adequate to cover in 22. So when you look at it, and with regards to the commitment for the 3 schools, the 4.5 million increase gets funded. If you look at the 2.5 million in each of the capital funds, it gets funded. It's just the methodology used to fund it allows funding to remain in the general fund and serve as offsets to these anticipated sales tax collections. So that's a summary. That's a short version of of what we would plan on doing. We wanted to share it with the board because if there's a difference of opinion, now would be a good time for administration to hear about it so that we can prepare accordingly.
Mrs. Centeni, you have a comment?
Mr. Guidry, tomorrow when I call you, I'll be looking forward to the long version. I enjoy a good financial story. Would you please enlighten the board what you're projecting the fiscal year 2020 surplus to be?
Well, at this point in time, we're projecting it to be at least 4.5 million.
Oh, is that so?
Yes. Beyond that, we are processing purchase orders even in through June. Normally that process ends at the end of April. But with everything that we're trying to prepare for, the 3 scenarios with regards to, a full opening, kids remaining home for whatever time period, or a hybrid of the 2, we have to start making purchases. We've started making purchases already. So but we're still processing purchase orders, hundreds of purchase orders right now in preparation for that. I would hope that we would finish up in the $6 to $8 million range. But until we get a handle or a better estimate of the POs that we're still processing now, the purchase orders that we're still processing now, it makes it difficult, to come up with a definitive number. But right now, 6 to 8 would be what I would estimate.
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, can I ask a question?
Sure.
Mr. Guidry?
Sure.
Really quickly, going back to the energy cost summary, obviously we only have the current numbers through this part of fiscal year 2020, but you project that we're going to end the year as, close to the same numbers that we had in last year's? Or do you think it'll be a lower number and we will have some kind of energy cost savings there?
I think we had provided for, in the budget, we had provided for an increase to those to the utility line items because we knew that we were going to be opening a new elementary school.
Right.
So based on the numbers we're looking at, we feel that the increase that we built into the budget is more than the actual expenses that we've incurred. So I think it would actually add to the bottom line and contribute to the surplus, projected surplus that I mentioned earlier.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Guidry, and thank you for the short version, sir. I'll let Mrs. Centeni give me a shorter version of the long version. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to enter our consent agenda portion. I'm going to read off the agenda items. Board members will pull those they want to discuss. 4.1, discuss any action concerning the Scott Renaissance Charter Academy application.
Pull that, please.
4.2, discussion and action concerning the proposed 2020-2021 student parent handbook. Discussion and action concerning the elementary level realignment of all zone Woodville Rising 4th grade students. 4.4, proposed revisions to policy JBD, student absences and excuses. 4.5, child nutrition services, discussion and or action concerning bid award 20-2026 bread and bread products. 4.6, child nutrition, discussion and or action concerning bid award 20-2025 milk and milk products. 4.7, employee services, discussion and or action concerning the reclassification and related update job description for the gifted and talented program manager. 4.8, employee services, discussion and or action concerning the high demand teacher stipend. 4.9, discussion and action concerning updated job descriptions for the human resources specialist and the coordinator of employee services. 4.10, employee services, discussion and or action concerning updated job description for the payroll coordinator, supervisor of transportation, and supervisor of child welfare and attendance. 4.11, employee services, discussion and or action concerning the nurse practitioner job description and related budget revisions. 4.12 is finance, discussion and or action concerning bid award, homeless department, school uniforms bid 15-21. 4.13, finance, discussion and or action concerning bid awards for bids 04-21 nursing supplies, which is latex-free products. 4.14, finance, discussion and or action concerning budget to actual reports for May 2020. 4.15, finance, discussion and or action concerning the grant fund summary of May 2020. 4.16, discussion and or action concerning the sales tax collection report for May 2020. 4.17, finance, discussion and or action concerning bid awards, sports medical supplies bid 03-21. 4.18, finance, discussion and or action concerning bid award for Fund 59, Southside High School. This is for furniture, fixtures, and equipment. 4.19, finance, discussion and action concerning bid award band uniforms bid 06-21. 4.20, finance, discussion and action concerning an amendment to the lease with Compass Group USA Incorporated, ESS, for office space at 207 Town Center. 4.21, facilities, discussion and action concerning approval of bids for Thibodaux STEM soccer, baseball, softball, and parent drive project. 4.22, facilities, discussion and action concerning approval of quotes for Broadmoor Elementary flooring abatement. 4.23, facilities, discussion and action concerning approval of bids received to sell surplus portable buildings. 4.24, facilities, discussion and action concerning budget revisions to self-funded construction fund. 4.25, facilities, discussion and action concerning budget revisions and capital improvements funds for Acadiana High School athletic facility repairs.
Can you pull it out?
4.26, facilities, discussion or action concerning budget revisions and self-funded construction for furniture, fixtures, and equipment, wing additions, and cafeteria. 4.27, facilities, discussion and or action concerning approval of hiring Poche Pruitt Associates LLC as a consultant to the board and the superintendent.
Pull that, please.
4.28, discussion and or action concerning an RFQ process for the selection of architects and engineers.
Pull that.
4.29, facilities, discussion or action concerning approval of quotes for Como High girls gym floor refinishing. 4.30, facilities, discussion or action concerning the facility environmental and mechanical systems HVAC maintenance agreement. And 4.31, 4.31 is Superintendent, is the discussion and or action concerning the minutes of May 13th, 2020 and May 27th, 2020. And 4.32 is approval of all action consent items. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Lodgley, I'd like to add 4.9.
We've added 4.9. Thank you, sir.
Can you call out what's been pulled, Mr. Latchley?
The ones that were pulled?
Yes, sir.
4.1, 4.2, 4.8, 4.9, 4.25, 4.27, 4.28, and 4.30.
Okay.
All
Can you
items
also
pulled.
pull 4.11, 411?
Alrighty, we've also added 4.11. I will entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
A second.
We have a motion by Dr. Chasson, seconded by Ms. Morrison, that we approve all items not pulled. Is there any public discussion on any item that was not pulled? Now is your time to speak. Any board comment on any item not pulled? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. It has been a while since we've had a completely public meeting. While we're waiting on the vote, we will go through the items one at a time. If you have public comment on any item pulled, Ms. Gardner will have a 3-minute time limit. You will be limited to 3 minutes. And the only thing we ask is if various members of a group are here, if you would send a representative up and not have 3, 4, 5, 6 people come up and say the exact same thing, we'd appreciate it. But you will be limited to 3 minutes. And then we'll go, once we go to board comments, there will be no more public discussion. The motion carries. We'll move on to the first item pulled, which is 4.1, is the discussion and our action concerning the Scots Renaissance Charter Academy application. I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board reject the Scott Renaissance Charter Academy application.
I have a motion by Dr. Aguilar, seconded by Mr. Angel, that the board rejects the Scots Renaissance Charter Academy application. Mr. Spencer?
Yes, if the board has any questions about the evaluation or third-party evaluator, Dr. Daspit is here to answer any questions. And I think the charter group also has a representative here.
Is there any public comment? Does anyone from the public want to come in and come up and speak on this? Come up, state your name. And this is comments only, not question and answer. Thank you.
Julia Reed, Lafayette Parish Association of Educators. Supporting the motion, we would not like to see another charter school open up in our parish. Charters drain money from local public schools, and they do not provide a significantly better value. Studies have shown this, that many charter schools show negative or negligible effects on education. Furthermore, this charter school operator has a charter school that has similar demographics that is a C school in our parish, and they are proposing to open another school. So they haven't, the west side is a B school in the area, and Scott Middle is a C school with a progress index of B, just as they claim that their Lafayette Renaissance Charter Academy is a C school but has a B progress index. So it does not seem that they do a better job educating children than our local public schools. Charter schools are not subject to the same oversight that public schools are, so I don't even feel that it's a equitable comparison to put them in the same category as public schools. So we're asking that you reject this charter application and protect our public schools.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Any more public comment concerning this item? I'll open up the floor for any board member comments or questions.
Mr. President, I
Ms.
just want to
Booth?
say I'll be abstaining from the vote due to a conflict.
Thank you. Ms. Morrison?
Yes, I service mainly the elementary schools in the Scott area, and our schools have advanced tremendously since I've been a board member. Dusong, West Side, Austin, they're all B schools and doing very well. We're not filled to capacity, so I don't see the need for a charter school. So that's my take on that. And I just wanted to know, maybe from the charter school, the Renaissance organization, why do you feel we need another school in Scott? What are your reasons for that?
If you're a representative with the charter school, please come up.
This mic?
Yes, sir. Press the little button and state your name and so forth, sir.
Hi, Greg Terrio. Excuse me, can you guys hear me? Hi, I'm Greg Terrio. I'm the Director of Teaching and Learning for Charter Schools USA. I'm the former principal at North Vermilion High School and also worked for the LDOE and a proud graduate of 1983 Como High School, so yes, I know the area. We feel that Scott is a place with growth that is going to come because we are understanding that there is going to be an 800 home subdivision that is going to be in the Scott area. Because of that, we see that as an opportunity to provide schooling for kids in a comparable manner to the Lafayette school system and hopefully be able to meet those needs. We do believe that we offer a good product. If you look at our comparative data, as mentioned earlier, in the Larka school zone, we had the second highest progress growth score, okay, and also the second highest SPS with comparative demographics of our kids. If you look at our Arca school, which is our Youngsville school, they had the highest academic indices compared to schools in their district and a very high progress index as well. So we do believe that we offer a product of success for our kids, and we are just offering this not in a competitive but more of a complementary arena for the Lafayette Parish School Board.
Thank you, sir. You
Yes,
might
sir.
want to hang around. There might be another question or two. Any other board member comments or questions?
So for Ms. Morrison, if I may, I know you mentioned data and scores, Ms. Morrison, so we did pull data just for your information. And these are the schools we looked at: Dusong, Judice, Austin, Prairie, Scott, Westside, Woodvale, Ridge, and Charles Burke. When we look back 2014, we had 3 of those schools with school performance scores of Ds. Currently, our latest school performance scores, we have 3 Cs, and all other schools have moved to Bs in that area. So the academic growth is happening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Ms. Strauss-Clare. Mrs. Santani?
Mr. Terrio, you guys have some, I compared your application from 6 years ago to your application today, and I'll commend you for putting some very aggressive goals in your application today. So my question to you is, as I reviewed, I think just as Ms. Reed did, I reviewed the school performance score for your Youngsville campus and for your Pont de Mouton campus, and noticed that the performance didn't seem to significantly vary from the schools surrounding it. And then your application today says that you, Scott Renaissance Charter Academy, will be an A school within 4 years. Is that
As competitive as I am, yes, sir.
all right? 4 years from now, is that going to be I don't even know what the term of the contract is with either a local school board or the state of Louisiana. What is a typical contract term for the charter?
Normally about 4 years.
Normally about 4 years. So
Yes,
what
sir.
what do you think the consequences should be of not making your stated goal in 4 years if you are unable to achieve it? Because I'll be the first one on the street cheerleading you on if you're able to take our students and give them an A school.
Gotcha.
Because as much as we've tried, we haven't been successful just yet.
Gotcha.
So what do you think should happen in 4 years? Because I think you know this about me. I generally am in support of the charter schools. I'm not persuaded by arguments that purport to tell us what the demand from parents are. I think parents are going to tell us what the demand are, because if you guys open your doors and students show up, seems to me like there's a lot of demand. If you open your doors and students don't show up, seems to me like you're the one that's going to bear the responsibility for bad decision making, right?
Yes,
So
sir.
I'm not going to concern myself with the demand. What I want to know is, on the other side of things, once students are in school there, because you and I both know that once students get in a school, they're going to stick with it unless there's something really bad about the school. So what is the consequence for having this charter school model but failing to meet your goal?
That's governed by the Louisiana Charter School.
No, I understand what it's governed by. I'm
Correct.
asking you, what do you think the consequence should
Well, let's go back to the compact, though.
Okay.
The compact is the contract that the local school board has with the charter management organization. And for any violation within that contract, which could be not making the SPS, you guys, upon the renewal term, which would be 4 years from now, if you decided to be a type 1 charter, say you did not meet your financial obligation, you didn't meet your equity obligation, you didn't meet your academic obligation, and at that time, you guys could pull that charter back.
Do you think that's what should happen?
I have seen it. I have seen charters pulled. Yes, sir.
Okay. What were the circumstances under which charters were pulled?
Academics, sometimes, not at, this is my first year at Charter Schools USA. I'm speaking as an LDOE representative in the past, okay? Schools were not academically making the gains that they need. The state pulled those charters. But I've also seen local school districts pull charters as well from non-performing charter school organizations.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
Any other board member comment, questions? I do have something to say before we go to the vote, being I am the other board member who represents the other portion of Scott.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad there's 800 more homes coming, because we're building a brand new Prairie. We're preparing for that. We've done facilities improvements at Scott Middle. We've done facilities improvements at Leo Judice. We've done facility improvements at West Side. As a school system, we are prepared. We've done $250 million of facility upgrades in this parish, and we plan on doing about another 150 to 200 million in the future. So we are preparing for the growth. We are moving forward. I don't see the need for it. There's definitely not a need in the Scott area. I can promise you that much. We're doing everything as a system here to prepare in that area, but I do appreciate it. I'm not going to support this, but I just had to inject that, being I'm the other board member. I would hope Scott doesn't support it. It's a very foundation area, grassroots people that have lived there all their life. They're very proud of their A school in Leo Judice, Scott Middle, and just the schools. And I mean, the kids going to Acadiana. It's a lot of family, a lot of tradition. So I kind of hope they stick with the Lafayette Parish school system. And I am a very competitive person also, so I will fight you as hard as I can, keeping my students. But
Gotcha.
thank you for trying.
Yes, sir. That's no problem at all.
Any other board member comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Five
Motion-
for, one against,
Motion carries to reject
two abstain.
the Scott Renaissance Charter Academy, 5 for, 1 against, 2 abstain, and 1 absent. Thank you. Next item pulled was 4.2, discussion and or action concerning the proposed 2021 Student Parent Handbook. I'll entertain a motion. Write down before. Mr. Broussard.
I'll make a motion.
We need a motion, sir.
Yeah, I need to make the motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board approves the proposed 2020-2021 handbook with the following change.
Second.
1 second, please. I didn't say what the change was. I appreciate your confidence in me, though, Ms. Morrison. All right, with the following change under hair and facial hair, remove unnatural color in front of highlights.
We have a motion.
On the summary of notable changes, this is removing unnatural color, I believe, where the misunderstanding has come from. It was number 19 on page 19 under hair and facial hair, part A.
Are you still good with your
To
second, Ms.
remove-
Morrison?
Yes.
We have a motion.
Mr. Santana, say that again.
Remove the second instance of unnatural color, so that it reads, unnatural hair colors, highlights, braids, and/or extensions are not allowed. And then I'll say the clarification is intended to be that unnatural colors apply to hair, highlights, braids, or extensions. None of those things are explicitly forbidden in and of themselves. You'd be okay either way. I missed you, Mr. Lasselet.
I missed you too, sir. But I do have various colors. I have a little white, little gray. It used to be red. Okay, we have a motion. I'm waiting to see the motion up there. Mary seconded.
Yes, second.
Yeah. We're going to go ahead and open up the floor to public comment. Remember, 3 minutes. Ms. Reed.
Julie Reed, Lafayette Parish Association of Educators. There's two things that we have with this item. One, we're concerned about the lack of teacher and parent input into the handbook and the discipline matrix. I reached out to a lot of teachers that had been originally asked to serve and said that when things were canceled due to COVID, they weren't ever sent information on how to participate via Zoom. The school district, we had faculty meetings, PLCs, retention meetings, lots of things by Zoom. I'm not really certain why stakeholder input could not have been taken via Zoom because we're pretty comfortable using those platforms. I would also like to thank Mr. Santini for the amending the language. It was something that I was concerned with. It was unclear to me, and I felt that it could be applied. I don't know, I'm sure there was no intent to discriminate and/or call out anyone, but words matter. I'm an ELA teacher. Words matter. I also wanted to point out some other things that are concerning. This part is me speaking as an individual, not as an LPAE representative, because I do not know the feelings of our membership on this particular issue. But there are some other things in here, like matching socks, that I'm not really certain that we should be having rules around, whether they have a red sock or a blue sock. As a teacher, as a parent, I don't want to increase my students' contact with school disciplinary measures over the color of their socks. So, I would ask that this be revisited. Could it be delayed? We get more stakeholder input. Could it be reviewed? Because there are a few little things in there that I just feel if they'd had more would not be in there. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment? Remember, please keep your comments to 3 minutes.
Thank you, guys. Hi, how are you? Ozzy, I think you all know me, a parent. I have some quick concerns. I am going to address, the concerns about the implications of the hair and those kind of things, but I wanted to get through a couple of other things before I went through that. Some of the issues I have with the new student handbook, for example, the section about detention. If you look at Louisiana Revised Statute 17416, the definition of detention is before school, after school, and on weekends. So having recess detention and lunch detention kind of contradicts that part of that. So I would encourage you guys to look at the definition of detention and how it fits into the steps in the discipline matrix. Some of the steps in the discipline policy, specifically step 1, 2, 3, and 4, and how it affects students, specifically special education students, 504 students. I see out on the 4th out of school suspension, recommend expulsion or change of placement. It implies that there's no MDR in there. We all know that there's going to be an MDR. We're all going to fight for it. I'll show up for it. But there's no clear definition in there and no clear indication that an MDR actually, when a student is recommended for expulsion, they're recommended for an MDR. The MDR decides whether it goes to an expulsion or not. So I encourage you guys to look at that. Regarding the discipline matrix and the infraction codes and the definitions, I appreciate the time that you guys spent on this. It's been one of those things that has troubled me as an advocate for parents for the last 3-4 years. But I do have some concerns. So starting from infraction code 69 through the bottom, you have listed as crimes of violence. If you look at the statute that specifically talks about crimes of violence, arson is not a crime of violence. Aggravated arson is a crime of violence. Assault and battery is not a crime of violence. Aggravated assault and aggravated battery is a crime of violence. These are really, they don't maybe seem like a big deal to everybody, but when I've been to those discipline hearings for the students and I see the behavior report forms that are often not even done correctly, it causes an alarm for me, because most of the students that are sent for discipline hearings are African American students. The last part of this is that I understand, Mr. Santani, what you clarified. I understand from some of the comments that you've sent to parents and some of the other board members have sent to parents in response. Backtracking some of this, the LPSS did not come out with a statement of solidarity in the Black Lives Matters issues right now. You had something about reaching out to minority businesses, but no statement. Every month you have a proclamation, and instead you put something so contentious and so insulting.
Could you keep it to the agenda item? This is not germane to the item. Thank you. This is not a platform for political agenda. Please keep it, or I'll ask you to step down.
So, in closing, thank you, and I hope you take heed to some of these things.
Any more public comment?
Hello, my name is Alicia Roberts. I have a child at Como High School. She's been in the Performing Arts Academy since pre-K. This is about the dress code things as well. First, I want to say, in a study on distractions from 2015, the conclusion was that if a teacher is not proficient in controlling attention, focusing, and refocusing when things go awry in their classroom, this can cause a loss of focus and in turn create a variety of problems. Are you able to pay attention to me right now? Because I have colored hair. I'm wearing shorts. So you're all adults, and we all can figure out how to attend to what's going on in front of us. So can our kids. That's our job as educators. I have an undergrad in behavior, and I am 3 weeks away from my master's in behavior as well. And I work in a clinic with kids with special needs. Do I need to talk louder because the mic went out? Okay. I work with upwards of 20 kids a day with everything from ASD to GDD to ODD, and guess what? They attend all day, every day, with my 20-plus employees that have tattoos, colored hair, rings, earrings, nose rings, all sorts of piercings. If you are using the distraction myth, do you have data to back that up? Because we are professionals, and we should be using data and scientific information to make those kind of decisions. Louisiana is 50th in education, and you guys are focusing on this right now. I sent this picture to my husband because other parents sent it to me and asked me to speak up. My husband, who is a good old boy, Cajun from Breaux Bridge, looked at it and the first words out of his mouth were, "This is racist." So I'm just letting you know that is what parents are seeing when they see this new policy. To say that braids, extensions, earrings bigger than a quarter, commenting on the fingernails, mismatched socks, those things are ridiculous, petty things that we're worrying about, and we're not focusing on what's really important in the classroom. Having been a member of the discipline committee for this very board, I know that we have fought and argued and talked ad nauseum about these kinds of topics. And most of the people in the committee meeting have talked about how our biggest concern is getting kids to instruction, is not preventing them from accessing instruction. And by focusing on things like this, that's what you're doing. That's where your distraction lies, in taking away from instructional time and accessing that time for worrying about whether or not their socks match. Who cares? School is exactly the time for them to experiment with stuff like that and self-expression. So that by the time they get out in the workforce, who, by the way, doesn't care about that stuff anymore, right there, I have a master's degree and I have pink hair. Nobody cares about that stuff anymore. We need to be worrying about instruction and improving quality of instruction, not worrying about this kind of stuff. And I'm very disappointed that the discipline committee is not having quality parent representation. Having somebody who's on this board be one of the parents on that committee is not equitable representation for parents on that committee. The issues our schools are facing are much bigger, and for us to be taking time to worry about this is ridiculous.
It's your 3 minutes. Thank you. Any other public comment? Are you coming up, ma'am? Okay.
I didn't prepare anything major to speak. I actually...
Is the little button on? Yes, right in the middle. Is it on?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is LaShonda Allen Johnson. I didn't prepare anything major to kind of present, but I did run across the topic of tonight as it pertains to the hair for students. I do have a young daughter who is in the 8th grade, and she does wear braids. And although she hasn't advanced to wearing hair extension, I think that it's very popular for the African American culture, and also needed for students who may, encounter cancer. Many students, and I'm a nurse also, and again, I didn't prepare anything, but it protects their integrity and helps with their self-esteem, prevents bullying at times because their hair may not be presentable or acceptable by their peers. So I really would ask that you consider changing the verbiage, not just for the African American community, but those who may encounter diseases or diagnoses that may affect them losing their hair, such as alopecia, cancer treatment, etc. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment? We'll move on to board member comment. We have a bunch. We're going to start on the left. Go ahead, Mr. Broussard.
I'm having problems swallowing the language. Unnatural hair color, braids and extensions are not allowed. I can support this at present, but I want to bring it back and we get a clear explanation of what that means. That can mean a lot of things to an African American student. It can mean a lot of things. The teacher can say that I do not like your braids or your extensions, and you it to be interpreted the way it is. It can be interpreted that way. Like I said, I don't like the language of it. I understand the intent, but I'm going to reserve my position to bring it back for clear language as to what, so it cannot be interpreted as one wish it to be.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. Mr. Santani?
I'll use my comment to help to try to sway Mr. Broussard. I'm certainly, my intent with the change of the language was to make it crystal clear that braids and extensions and hair, for that matter, because hair was also in that list being modified by unnatural and not allowed, that those are explicitly allowed. I know if I went home and had to tell my daughter that braids were not allowed, I would be facing quite a bit of backlash. So I want to make very, very clear, because I didn't catch it the first time I read through it, and then I realized that the fact that there was a second unnatural color instance in the sentence could reasonably lead someone to believe that if it didn't appear before the third and the fourth, like it did before the first and the second thing in the sentence, that the third and the fourth were not modified by the unnatural, and that they were standalones, which were braids and extensions. So I realize that it could possibly be interpreted that way. So the intent here is to make it crystal clear, and if there's a better way to do that, all for it, all open ears. And then I'll just say, as far as the hair color itself, I agree with you. 3 years ago, 2 years ago, whenever we voted on this, I don't know when that was, Mr. Lachele, do you remember?
Probably 3 years ago, I would think.
I agree with you. I voted against, I voted to let kids have purple hair if they wanted to. It doesn't bother me one bit, but I think, Ms. Roberts, as I told you this afternoon, or I told someone this afternoon, that the issue has been settled, and the reason that we're having it apply to braids and extensions and highlights is that it needs to be a consistent policy. We're either going to allow unnatural colored hair, or we're not going to allow unnatural colored hair. If the question were, do you want to allow unnatural colored hair, I'd be all for it, but that's not the question. The question is, do we want to have the two policies be consistent? And so, I'm for making it consistent, that's for sure.
Ms. Morrison?
I just want to be clear. So extensions and braids are allowed?
Correct.
Okay. Okay. And the color, they could have one color but not multiple colors. Is that right? Or no color?
Right.
Oh, okay, like brown, brunette, blonde. It can't be purple or green or anything like that. I'm sorry? Yes, I can. I could be whatever I want to be. I might be blind next month.
That's what it says. You cannot be a mom.
Dr. Aguilar, did you have your hand up?
Thank you.
No, I think everybody did.
I did. Thank you. I had two concerns brought to my attention today. One about hair color, and I think that's being resolved with motion. And the second one relates to acrylic nails at the middle school level. The teacher indicated that it can be distracting because the nails fall off, and the kids spend a lot of time picking up the acrylic nails and trying to get them back on. So, Mr. Centani, I would welcome an amendment to your motion to indicate that middle school students are not allowed to have acrylic nails. It says elementary schools.
Are acrylic, I'm sorry, Mr. President.
Yeah, go ahead, sir.
Are acrylic nails addressed somewhere in here already, or not at all?
They're addressed on
Number 19.
19.
A lot of 19s.
Body decorations.
Body decorations.
Body decorations.
Page 2 of the notable changes.
So
elementary students, schools have no artificial or acrylic nails. And when you look at middle schools, it says no painted faces or other distracting makeup.
Acrylic nails is, I'm just gonna look like a stupid, like I don't do my nails hardly at all. Acrylic nails, that's the fake nails?
Yep.
Is that right?
So. I think so.
Okay.
I feel pretty confident answering yes.
Look, before today, I would have said that we weren't outlawing braids and extensions, so I just wanted to make sure that I know what I'm talking about. Yeah, that's fine, Dr. Aguilar.
So we'll have an amendment to the motion. Who was the second? Are you fine with that, Ms. Morrison?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Madam Secretary, if you would add that. Anything else, Dr. Aguilar? Ms. LeBeau, did you have your hand up?
Yes, sir, and I'm trying to find it. It was a question about when a child is removed from the classroom or recommended to leave the classroom to go to the counselor, or it is expelled from the classroom and now has to go through the process of going to a counselor first. I'm trying to find where it is, I'm sorry. And I will say, as a mother of a daughter who had alopecia and actually entered 6th grade having to wear fake hair, I would never, not support children getting to include natural color, braids, extensions, all that in their hair. I mean, it was devastating for her, and so I wouldn't want any child to go through the bullying and the, that kind of process. So thank y'all for standing up today. I apologize. I'll let Mr. Chasson speak, or Dr. Chasson speak.
Go ahead, Dr. Chasson. We'll give Ms. LeBeau some time.
Okay. Thank you. Let's see. My first question is, On our electronic devices, when there's damage to them, do we have insurance on our electronic devices?
No, sir.
No, sir. All right. Okay.
You flip to page 3.
Okay. So I'm gonna make 2 or 3 quick comments, and then I'm gonna ask for a friendly amendment, or if not, I may make a substitute motion and see if I can get some support on it. The solid color socks, I had that written down from last night. I disagree with the solid color socks, because I see a lot of kids at Northside. They walk around with the long white socks with the red ring around it. Does everybody remember those? The ones you used to wear when you were a kid, Mr. Broussard? Those? I never wore those.
The tube socks. The tube socks is what they were called.
Tube socks?
Yeah, athletic socks.
That's what a tube sock is? Man, I'm so young.
Mine was green and gold.
I'm so young.
Get out of here.
So I see a lot of the kids wearing that, and I mean, they love wearing them. White, blue ring, white, red ring. So I disagree with the solid color socks. Let's see. Number 3, in-school suspensions.
Are you asking to add that to the
Oh,
motion?
no, not yet, because some folks may be okay with it and may not, so I'd prefer to do them separately as is, just to see if, because to combine 5 different things, folks will vote for, or not vote for one thing as opposed to the entire thing. So let's see, in-school suspensions appealed. In-school suspensions cannot be appealed. Was there a reason for the projected change? Were they allowed to be appealed before? Well, let me ask that question. Were they allowed to be appealed before? Does anybody know?
No, sir, they've never been allowed to be appealed in school suspensions. It's only out-of-school suspensions, and so there was no clarity, and we were constantly having to redirect to the statute, so we went ahead and clarified with the words.
Okay. I'll ask the board for a separate vote on that matter as well, in-school suspensions. When it comes to a kid and a teacher saying a kid did something, vice versa. Teacher said a kid did something, student says they didn't do it, with the teachers and the principals being the judge and the jury on these matters. I think if a kid is given in-school suspension, a parent should be able to appeal it. I've always thought that, and as well, I just assumed that you could, because anytime I explain to a parent that they disagree with the punishment given out, I always inform them, but hey, you're allowed to appeal it. Yeah, 5 days you're allowed to appeal it. So I'm going to ask for a separate vote on that matter, and however the board votes will be democracy. And middle school consequence. Let's see. There was a section that I read where there was a middle school consequence, but the middle school consequence was to be determined by the individual middle school. Let's see if I can find it again.
Is it on the change?
Oh, 35. Yeah, proposed changes. Let's see. So, middle school consequences of behavior policy, minor infractions. Each school must identify a minor infraction process. I want every middle school to have the exact same process. I don't want to hear from one school to find out that this is not allowed as a process, and then another school allows it. Como allows you to throw your graduation hat, but if you throw it at any other graduation, you're not graduating. They need to stop it. So I'm going to ask you guys to, I'm actually request to refer that back for a clear explanation as to what that process may look like, and everybody's got to have the same process. Each school can identify their own minor infraction process, because we'll have kids maybe transferring, which is highly unlikely, but a kid transfers from Lafayette Middle to Acadian Middle, and one thing that was allowed there is not allowed somewhere else. And think that is it. Oh, and just real quick, when it comes to hair, I'm okay with any color hair. I literally have brown hair and blonde and red it's not up here anymore, but it's at least right here and right here. And my daughter, I've actually got strangely enough, Kate handed it to me. I got a picture of my daughter right here. That's baby girl's hair. And that hair is black and red and blonde, and that ain't highlights. That's the way it grows. And then, so I'm okay with any hair color. It doesn't distract me. And then, as well, uniforms from way back in the day. I just want to state for everybody to know, I disagreed with uniforms. I wanted to allow kids to be themselves. I didn't think we needed uniforms back in the day. So I had voted against the first inception of uniforms that long ago. And that's it.
Ms. LeBeau?
Thank you. Number 24, student removal from class. My main concern is there's a counseling session with the principal. The principal makes this decision. There's very limited, disciplinary measures. But the last disciplinary measure says any other disciplinary measure authorized by principal with the concurrence of the teacher or school building level committee. I don't see anywhere in here where a counselor is brought into the discussion. And so I would like number 24 to be amended so that it's not a principal, that we have some, if we're going to the level of detention or suspension or expulsion hearings, if that's going to be the disciplinary methods that are listed, I feel like we should have a school counselor involved in this process. And I really don't like a broad any other disciplinary measure. I feel like that gives too much discretion. I know obviously, the different school levels may have different appropriate disciplines, but I think I would like to see them defined for what's appropriate at the different age levels and different school increments. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more board member comment? Okay, I'm going to ask for clarification from Ms. Boudreau. If we approve or not approve Mrs. Santani's motion, can we still go back and make motions on what Dr. Chasson wants to make? We can.
If it'll make it easier,
Okay.
and I think it will,
Okay.
I will certainly withdraw my motion,
Okay.
and then we can change whatever it is we want to change.
Okay.
And then have one final vote on approving the handbook. I think it would be cleaner from a minutes perspective.
All right.
And to make sure that everyone understands exactly what they're voting on and exactly what's up for debate.
All righty.
My suggestion. So
All right.
with that, I will withdraw my motion and hold it for later.
Ms. Morrison agrees.
I think what he said, what you probably should do here is make individual motions on,
Correct.
let's, for
Socks.
instance, this thing, this
Okay.
issue, this issue, this issue, and
Okay.
then we'll approve the handbook, and each one of those things will either be in there or not in there.
Correct.
As opposed to approving the handbook
Okay.
with one change or not.
Thank you for that clarification. For the audience, we just want to make sure we get this right. Dr. Chasson, would you like to make some motion, sir? No, he's pulled it. We're fresh.
Okay.
Do you want?
Did you want to go with yours
Those
first?
two issues, yeah. You want to go?
One by one? Okay.
One by one.
Would you have first?
Yes, sir. Mr. President, I move, and I got to go find my spot again. I move that we modify under hair and facial color on page 19, Part A, that it read as follows. Unnatural hair colors, highlights, braids, and/or extensions are not allowed. Unnatural is defined as not naturally occurring on people.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Seems like that's a little different than what I understood. So
it's exactly what I said before, because in the original there are two instances of unnatural color.
Okay.
And what I just said, there's only one.
Okay.
And so that's saying that hair, highlights, braids, and extensions of unnatural color are not allowed.
Are not allowed?
Of
unnatural
color
are not allowed.
Natural colors will be.
To be clear, it is the unnatural color which prohibits
Okay.
it,
All
not
right.
the
I just want to make
existence
sure
of it.
that's clear to everyone.
Yes.
Okay.
Are you good with your second? We have a motion and we have a second. As soon as I can see the motion, I'll read it, but we'll open that up for public comment. We are allowing braids, just not of unnatural colors. Any board member comment?
Is that really, for everybody here, is that really like that confusing? Because if it is, we can just remove the braids and extensions part of it. We can just put unnatural hair colors, even though I disagree with that as well. I'm coming back for that.
I think I'd leave it the way he's worded it.
Okay. Wait, say it again, Mr. Latchley, I'm sorry.
I think I would leave it the way Mrs. Santani worded it.
I agree, since it was clarified.
It's making it clear.
I mean, I think Ms. Gardner and Ms. Trosclair are certainly clear on what the board intends and on how to enforce this.
Correct.
Right.
And on these items, if we could, I don't see the motion up on the board. If I could get the motion up, we'll go ahead and go to the vote. But that the board approves the proposed, no, that's not it. It's not it. It would just be the second portion. And we have had, with Miss Mason not here, she has asked that I ask Ms. Gardner to please clarify the process and who was involved, and that parents and administrators and Zoom meetings and so forth did take place, just to clarify that.
Yes, sir. It was set up just as the calendar committee was set up, where each school of 46 sites received an invitation to invite an administrator, a teacher, and a parent, and it was the school's responsibility to go ahead and send those names back in. And so in the years past, they've just picked 30 random people, and the calendar was so successful, so we did the same process to allow everybody to have a voice. We met for the first, then we divided it up into high school, middle school, and elementary to be able to really tackle the concerns at each level. We had one meeting in person, the high school meeting on 3/9, and then yes, COVID went into effect. After that, we had 6 Zoom meetings, 3 at the high school total, 2 at middle school, 2 at elementary. Then we had a final meeting. The final meeting, there was 143 invites sent out, 87 people were in attendance. For high school, 83, for the typical meetings, 67 invites were sent out, 41 people attended. I know multiple teachers from Lafayette High were on. They gave great feedback in the handbook. Elementary, we had 83 people invited, 49 were in attendance as average. And elementary, 83 people were invited and 42 were in attendance. So they were held through Zoom. Ms. Mason was one of the board members that was put on the committee also to see the process, and she served each time on each Zoom meeting and the one in person.
Thank you, Ms. Gardner. I think Mrs. Santani is making a slight change. But we are ready for the vote as soon as it's done.
I'm sorry, Mr. President. I took that opportunity to let my obsessive compulsive disorder read the motion again, and so the new one is going to read that unnaturally colored hair, highlights, braids, and/or extensions are not allowed. I think that's as clear as I can get it for the moment. Everybody, is that? Anyone have any? I know the architects they don't care about this, but does anyone have any suggestions, comments, feedback on that? Is that clear?
It's clear to me.
I would feel better if you would eliminate braids and extension.
I agree. I would feel better as well. But that also falls under, we would now have a policy where certain portions of hair are allowed or are not specifically prohibited from being an unnatural color. So again, I think you and I were on the same side of this a couple of years ago, but we're either going to have a rule or we're not going to have a rule. And the rule now is unnaturally colored hair, regardless of whether it's yours or not.
Yeah, I think the rule should be unnaturally colored hair, not unnaturally colored braids or extensions. hair, it's hair. But if you target braids or extension, you're targeting a certain group of people.
Okay.
Then vote against it.
Well, Mr. Broussard, not necessarily. As I said, I had to put extensions in my child's hair every day because she was bald on portions of her hair. So I wouldn't necessarily, I know that majority would apply, but there are exceptions.
Okay. All right. It's correct. Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. That's number 1. Dr. Chasson, while we're waiting for the vote, that's the only one Mrs. Centani has, not Dr. Centani. Mrs. Centani has, you can go ahead and start yours if you would like. Well, as soon as it hits, you'll be next. You can go down your list. I think socks was first, and just want you to be prepared.
8 for, none against.
Motion carries. Next motion will come from Dr. Chasson.
My apologies. I got a text message that said in-school suspensions. Board policy JDD allows. No?
Yeah, that's later.
So the board, amend your policy if you want to vote. It said our board policy allows for appeals. Go ahead, Doc. You can make your motion.
Okay, and I'd like to make a motion that regarding dress code, body decorations, number 19, that the item read, elementary and middle schools, no artificial or acrylic nails, painted faces, or other distracting makeup.
We have a motion by Dr. Aguilar, seconded by Mr. Angel. Is there any public comment on this motion? Any further board member comment on this motion? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll reread the motion as soon as it hits the screen. Just for informational purposes, I'm reading the motions. Can y'all see them on the big screen when they come up? Is the motions coming up? Yeah, it's up, okay. That the board approves the following changes to the proposed 2020-2021 student parent handbook with the following changes. Elementary schools, no artificial acrylic nails, painted faces, or other distracting makeup. Middle schools, no artificial acrylic nails, painted faces, or other distraction makeup. Nails should be no longer than a 1/4 inch. Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. All right, Dr. Chasson, we're ready for your sock motion.
Mr. Lochley.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dr. Aguilar.
Dr. Chasson, this concerns socks. So my question is, under number 19, dress code socks, the proposed language says students should wear a matching pair of solid color socks or solid color tights. That leads me to believe that they don't have to be the same color.
Where's the vote? Did everybody vote? Oh, there it is. 8 for, none against, 1 absent. Motion carries. Next motion, please. We have any? Okay.
Yes, sir. I need some clarification before I make this motion, because literally the information that I got is kind of just throwing me for a loop. Do we have a board policy that allows for appeals, and there's no distinction between in-school appeals, in-school suspension appeals, and out-of-school suspension appeals? And subsequently, let me ask our attorney, statute 17:416 allows for appeals of in-school and out-of-school suspension? I'm asking, I don't expect you to know it off the top of your head, but if somebody could take a look at it, we're probably gonna have to address it. 17:416. Someone messaged me just to let me know that, hey, there's a statute that says appeals are allowed for in-school and out-of-school. So if someone could just check that out, it doesn't have to be, we're gonna have to bring it back up.
Coach Frugier is coming up.
Hey, Coach. Yep.
They got you surrounded, Coach.
Steve Frugier, Supervisor of Child Welfare and Attendance. State law states 17:416 states that you can only appeal out-of-school suspension. Now, what we were doing for in-school suspension for as a courtesy call, I was addressing those appeals.
Okay.
And if a parent appealed the in-school suspension and there was some questions about it, then I just went on ahead and schedule a meeting and allowed a parent to state whatever reason why she felt that in-school suspension wasn't shouldn't be allowed for that child or student. So I was just doing it as a courtesy call.
Okay.
State law states that you can only appeal out-of-school suspension and expulsion and out-of-school suspension.
Does that answer your question, Dr. Chasson?
Yeah. I'll do some further research on it. Thank you, Coach. I appreciate it.
Thank you for your information, Coach. We appreciate it. Anything else, Dr. Chasson?
Yes, sir. Doc, you're killing me right now, Doc. Because that section 19 just says that students should wear a matching pair of solid color socks. But I'd like to make a motion that students be allowed to wear the socks of their choosing.
Second it.
We have a motion by Dr. Chasson and a second by Mr. Elroy Broussard that students be allowed to wear the socks of their choosing. Read the motion when it comes up. Any public comment?
I'd like to.
Can we amend it to say tights, socks and tights?
Yes, ma'am. That'll be fine with me.
I'm sorry.
That would be fine with me. I have a question of common sense.
How do you wear non-matching tights?
No, it doesn't have to be solid colored. They can
Solid
be.
color. They go from black to gray to red.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. Yeah, technically speaking, but I have a follow-up question on that, because I want to avoid as well what's inevitably going to occur. Oh, no, you're okay with not? We got some folks in the audience not wearing socks. That's all right. I actually sat right here and counted the folks in the audience that didn't have solid color socks earlier, and I was waiting. I had 3 of the 6 gentlemen in the front for a point in time, but I lost 2 of them. My percentages actually went up. I went to 75% as opposed to 50. Let me ask someone who's been a principal before. Sir, ma'am, sir. Appreciate y'all. If I missed anybody, what problems do you foresee with this? As far as, is a smiley face socks okay with you? Is obviously we're avoiding a cannabis sock. Obviously, we're not going to allow those things. But I want to be sure.
I do believe the language needs to be there, Dr. Chasson, school appropriate.
School
Socks.
appropriate. Okay.
School appropriate.
Okay. Okay. I just
Because
see-
we have encountered.
Oh, no, I
some
know.
of
I
the
just see
things,
some
right.
principals being really adamant about it, and then some being, all right. So I'm okay with that. Just hopefully they don't suspend the kid and punish a kid. I'll post on my Facebook if you have an issue with your sock to text me or call me.
Okay.
All right. I'd like to amend that to be school-appropriate socks and tights.
All righty. Are you still good with that, Ms. Broussard? All right, we have a motion. Do we have any public comment?
I could see what school was coming.
Tights and socks. Can you, if you? Well, no, we have public comment.
School appropriate, is that at the discretion of the principal, or is it just two socks? Bring clarification to me. A red sock, a blue sock, socks. I didn't wear matching socks today, so I just want to make sure when I send my child to school that she's
Right.
Within regulation.
Yeah, I understand. I'm just trying to, and it's going to be tough because I don't want to.
And does the sock prevent them from obtaining a quality education?
Oh, no, of course not. That's
Okay.
what we're trying to say. I don't want to lose sight of the forest for the trees and whatnot, but,
Yes, sir.
I just want to be sure to allow kids to wear the socks that they want. I just
Okay.
don't want them to lose their mind with it, which I
Yes,
know
sir.
some of my kids will.
I
Because
agree.
they're gonna get creative with their socks.
I agree.
And I'm just going to trust the principals in this matter for school-appropriate socks, and we can address an individual issue if it pops up. Like, do you think these socks were inappropriate? Because this principal said, yeah, and I'm gonna trust them to make those decisions.
Personally, I think you open up a can of worms if you're leaving it to the interpretation of a different school. You can wear one pair at Northside, but you can't wear it at Acadiana or vice versa. I think, I just personally think there's going to be a lot of confusion. You can just say, just let the kids wear whatever socks they want. Does it matter if they wear green and the blue?
Well, it doesn't matter. I just, like, some kids are gonna push it with, like, a cannabis sock, a marijuana sock.
Oh, well,
They
yeah,
say-
well, I mean,
But that's why they're saying school appropriate.
so maybe we should have kept it matching socks. Maybe we should have just left it like, whoa, there's no more public comment. We're over with that. We're in board member.
Yeah, we're in board member comments, guys.
We've done the public. We've got the motion.
Okay. I know, that's what we're trying to amend.
Mr. Centani.
So the reason I kept smirking and laughing and looking at you, I'll tell you about my struggle this year. I struggled to get my son to wear socks to school, to the point where he would wake up in the morning and he would actually avoid me and try to hide it from me until we got to the bus stop, because at that point he knew it was too late to go back home and put on socks.
Right.
And he would every now and then he'd pull up his pants and he'd be like, "Hey, look at that, I got no socks on." I'm like, "All right, man, you're going to have to deal with the consequences of this." Which is now, I don't know if there were actually any consequences for not wearing socks. So I just want to make sure that you know, or that we have covered, some basic level of personal hygiene of going into the school environment.
Right.
That socks are at the least required. Okay? Are they?
I don't think they are. They have
I-
kids that don't wear socks.
Hey.
That's on them.
I know, but I want the teacher and the principal to be able to get him to wear socks. Because I can't, obviously. No, like, it's just, I want to make sure that when a kid does sneak out of his house like mine does with no socks on, that there's a consequence waiting for him at school, that's all. Because there's one waiting for him at home, but he had to go through the whole day with no socks on.
Any board member comment?
I just wanted to say that I agree with school appropriate. I think that kind of covers, all the different inappropriate socks that they could wear. And as everyone knows, they make all types of socks out there. And if you don't say school appropriate, they can come up with anything, especially when you are in agreement to not matching socks. So I think school appropriate, and we leave it up to the discretion of the principals.
Ms. LeBou? Go ahead.
I think we could say a student may wear the socks of their choosing as long as they're not profane or offensive.
Oh, the first day of school, they pushing it, trust me.
Because as a
They're
working,
going to the office the first day of school.
because
trust
as a
me.
working mom, I can tell you, we have an entire bucket full of non-matching socks, and
Oh.
my kids half the time are wearing 2 different color socks. So, and I'm fine with that. But a feign, something that says it's offensive or anything like that, I think would be a better way to define what is not and what is school appropriate. So students must wear socks of their choosing. They cannot, have any type of offensive or what was the other
All
one?
right.
Yeah.
Appropriate.
School appropriate
Okay.
symbols on them.
Yeah.
Dr. Aguilar?
Oh, I was gonna say I'm okay with that amendment of vulgar, profane, or offensive. I'm gonna avoid the must though.
All right.
And I'm proud of us for having this long a discussion on
Yeah.
socks.
Never did I think I'd
Very
talk about
proud of
socks
us.
this long.
Dr. Chasson, I hate to chime in, but
It's
can
a
I?
step in the right direction.
Dr. Chasson, I hate to chime in, but on content under general guidelines for all clothing, it says, no clothing should contain anything that would be offensive in nature to any population of students. Clothing may not promote anything prohibited by LPSS discipline policy, including tobacco, alcohol, drugs, and violence. So that would take care of the sock issue.
That's outstanding.
So
Thank you, ma'am.
I guess I should have interrupted earlier. I apologize.
Go ahead, Mr. Latchley, I'm sorry.
The motion is that the board approves the following changes. Socks and tights. Students are allowed to wear school-appropriate socks and tights. Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. Any other motions to go before we,
Yes, sir.
all right. I'm going to ask that we come
While
down
we're,
to speed.
while we're voting, can y'all take a look at what I asked earlier? Just want to be sure we're taking a look at it, the middle school consequences of every middle school, figuring that out on their own? Okay. Solid color socks. In-school suspension. Appeal. Have a look. All right. 35.
Has everybody voted? They're waiting on somebody. Dr. Chasson, they're waiting on your vote.
I voted. And let's see, where's that?
8 for, none against.
Motion carries. Wear your socks.
Good job, everyone.
Appropriate.
Socks.
I promise you, the first day of school, somebody's going to the office with socks. I promise you.
Let's see. I'd like to make a motion on the unnatural hair color.
On the what?
Unnatural hair color.
Here we go again.
Yeah, the specifically at Northside High School, the individual kids will wear highlights, braids, extensions of multiple colors, and they don't. The school does not. It's not that they ignore it, just with the culture that is and has always been Northside. Kids will have an extension of blue or an extension of bright red, and they aren't called in. So I would like to exclude Northside High School and Lafayette High. Excuse me. I'd like to exclude District 4 schools and Lafayette High from unnatural hair colors.
Second.
Any public comment on the motion that District 4 and Lafayette High be excluded from hair colors?
Julia Reed, speaking in my capacity as an individual, not as LPAE president, I would ask that if the board is going to extend unnatural hair color to those students, that it is inequitable not to extend it to all students. I really feel that all students should be allowed to have the hair color that they want on their head. I really think that schools should be in the business of educating students on how to present themselves and not necessarily punishing them based on their self-expression. And as an educator, I don't even notice what color their hair is. I'm not really concerned about below here and then anything like around this area. This all doesn't matter to me. I don't educate this. I educate what's in here.
Really quickly, my reasoning, I can only speak for District 4. If any other board member, I do speak for all of the schools, but I know specifically for District 4, I'm okay with it. And as well, I completely agree with you. Completely agree. It's the same thing that occurs in college. Once I made it to LSU, the world opened up and nobody was wearing socks. So if any other board member would like to add their school, please feel free.
Any other public comment? Okay, now we'll go to board member comment. Come on up. When I'm calling for public comment, I need you right there ready. I'm not trying to be rude, but please be prepared.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Reading your mind.
That's okay.
Again, I would ask that my child goes to Como, and she, and I didn't bring this up earlier because I didn't even think about it because I'm a horrible mother. She has alopecia and had to shave her hair off last year as well. So she is also wearing what little hair has grown back and wigs and whatnot. And right now, what little hair she has is dyed green because that's what she wants. And she's almost 17 years old. She's going to be a junior in high school, and I don't really understand why the hair color is an issue. Again, I promise you these kids are not distracted by each other's hair color because they're seeing it everywhere else. They see it in the off time from school and all the other places in the world that have it. And actually, if we're trying to prep them for college, as Dr. Chasson said, they're going to walk into a college campus, and if we've sheltered them from all these things like different hair colors and piercings and not wearing socks, Mr. Santani, how are they going to appropriately acclimate there? So our job is to get them ready for college. Yes, in all different ways, including social ways. I don't know why I'm holding that on. So why don't we go ahead and do that and get them acclimated and desensitized to the things that don't really matter and get in the way of instruction by arguing about them? I would ask that we show all of our students in the parish the same respect that Dr. Chasson is going to show to his.
Any other public comment? Hearing none, we'll move on to board member comment. Okay. Yes. I'm sorry. Yes.
I'll just say that I don't remember when it was, but it was 2 years, 3 years ago that we actually had this very same argument. Ms. LeBou was not a member of the board then, and there was some significant disagreement on both sides. I believe Mr. Broussard and I were okay, and I was very touched. I believe Mr. Broussard's comment was he doesn't understand. I'm going to paraphrase, correct me if I'm wrong. He doesn't understand why the kids want purple hair, but your parents didn't understand why you wanted an afro, was your comment. And I was very touched by that, and I thought it was very poignant and encapsulated the argument very, very well, that every generation is different and different things motivate them. I honestly don't care about the hair color. I don't think Lafayette High cares about the hair color. I also appreciate and understand that there are educators and school administrators in this parish, regardless of what you or I think, who do think it makes a difference, and that's okay. What I'm trying to do here is not only reward Lafayette High with something that they say doesn't make a difference, that I think allows the students at Lafayette High to express themselves, but also a year or two from now come back and say, see, it didn't make a difference. Like, didn't make a difference one way or the other, whether you ban the hair color or whether you let them wear rainbow hair. And so hopefully, now, I'll also say this, kids, the quickest way to get this taken away is to do something silly with it. So let's all be responsible and not be outlandish about it. But maybe we can demonstrate that this is not the distraction that some people think it is, or maybe it will turn out to be the distraction that everybody says it will be, and we'll have to go ahead and reevaluate it at that time. Either way, we'll have some actual data to go on instead of our own personal opinions. So
I'm going to recommend, from where I'm sitting, that if you're going to make a motion, make it for all schools. Because I'm going to be as honest as I can be. I'm not discussing this again next month. Make it for all schools. Those that want it for all schools, vote for it. Those that don't, against. I would ask you, Dr. Chasson, to amend your motion to make it include all schools.
Uniform.
uniform, across the board.
Mr. Latchley, I'd be more than happy to make that amendment.
Go ahead, just make the change. I don't think it'll affect public comment.
You mean just-
Yeah, just remove, the board, yeah. Exclude districts 4 and 5, just change. Yeah. Remove it.
I can't hear what y'all are saying. Remove part.
You remove the entire sentence about unnatural, it just gets stricken.
I don't know what it does to your motion about the braids a while ago.
Well, I mean, it goes way farther, but, you know. But again, like, you know, the
Make a
rule,
motion to remove that sentence, please.
I'll second that.
And I think I'll address the reason why I didn't support this years ago. One, I served our country in the military, went to the Middle East, and yes, you're not going to wear piercings, you're not going to have colored hair, you're going to adhere to those rules. So you've got to prepare the kids. I work in the corporate world. You don't have colored hair. You don't have all this. You don't have it. You're just not preparing kids for college. You're preparing them for life. I dare you to try to color your hair in the military. It's not going to happen. But I mean, that's the reason. And my school didn't want it. But at the end of the day, it really doesn't matter. We'll just let them when they get to corporate America or the military or whatever they choose to do. Then you'll adhere to the rules and regulations of where you're at. But as far as school, you know what? I'd have probably dyed mine green and gold back in the day. I might do it next week. So has it been changed? Do we have any other board member comment? We're going to let them have whatever color hair they want.
One comment.
Go ahead.
Apparently, this was put on the board floor for a reason or added to the handbook for a reason.
Correct.
And I wanted to hear from someone to tell me why you felt this needed to be changed. Are you experiencing problems at the schools or is distractions? What's going on with it?
So I'll ask Ms. Gardner, who spoke with the committee about that discussion. Ms. Gardner?
It was actually in the handbook last year as far as color. They added the word extensions because they were saying, well, it's not my real hair, so I can color this. The principals felt, the majority of the principals felt, and I go with majority because it definitely was not unanimous as here, that it was a distraction in the class. They felt that the reds, the purples, the bright pinks, not really red as much, I'll take that back, more the bright pinks, the purple, the mermaid colors were considered a distraction in the classroom, and that to be focusing on instruction and not that. Distractions to other kids, not really the teachers as much. Distractions to other kids, just trying to stay focused. But that was the consensus of the committee. I just took the notes and let them talk through it.
And I would also, just from my experience as an educator, say that some things I think children can handle as they get older and mature more, where it's not quite as a distraction, sort of in the way about the nails from elementary and middle school, that it might be a consideration for you all just to think about, that maybe this is at middle school and high school when they're not, yes, as a consideration.
Ms. LeBeau? Oh, you finished, Ms. Morrison?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to interrupt you. Ms. LeBeau?
That was going to be my request, is to amend the motion to be for high school age only. I think it's also a, if we're going to reward them as they get older with being able to make, socially appropriate decisions on a high school level, to me would be the place to do this. So it would be uniform with the acrylic nails as well. So I would like to make a substitute motion that a naturally colored hair is permitted in high school.
Can we just ask Mrs. Santani to just amend this motion? That way we don't have to go through the whole process again? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. It was Dr. Chasson. I'm sorry. Dr. Chasson, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
High school, okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to go substitute motion. Any public comment on the substitute motion? Well, wait, we had a substitute. Who, you seconded it?
No, I'll second.
All right. Any public comment on the substitute motion that it only be allowed in high schools? Go ahead, ma'am.
Thanks. I just want to say I appreciate this decision because the other part of this that no one's talked about is the inequity and the disparity in disciplining these kinds of things, and it's a subjective thing. So you might have students at one school disciplined, or a teacher that wants to find a reason to discipline a student, and they'll use something as trivial as hair color to discipline that student. So I just want to thank you guys for doing this.
Any other public comment? Any board member comment? And I ask that you keep it short.
I'd like to try to encourage anyone. I don't really see elementary kids doing it. So if elementary kid did dye their hair, that's clearly the parents allowed them, so they're okay with it. So I think we should be okay with elementary. But I understand people's point of view. But as far as middle school, kids dyed their hair at Paulboro Middle when I was in the gifted program. And as well, athletes dyed their hair. The cheerleaders dyed their hair. The cheerleaders did ribbons and highlights and the school colors, and as well the general population, middle school kids do dye their hair. And I mean, I think you guys should include at least middle school.
Any other board member comment? Mr. Michelle, we haven't heard from you tonight. You don't have any hair like me, sir, but go ahead.
I wanted you to know I was still breathing.
Thank you. I've been waiting for you to call the question for a while.
He stopped me a while
I know he did.
I did my best. And I'll be brief. I thank you for recognizing me, and I disagree with the motion. I think that we've lost our way relative to this motion. These rules and these proposed rules were put in the handbook for one reason, and that's to allow our teachers to better educate our students. And any kind of a distraction hinders that achievement. It gets in the way, in a small way, of further teaching our students. And I don't think it's a good idea. I realize I'll be in a minority, but my focus is on educating our students, not the color of their hair. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Onjo. Any other public board member comment? Only thing I'll say is I have to respect the fact that our administrators and our schools and volunteers got together and put this handbook together, and we as board members keep pulling these things. They put a lot of work into this, but Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
I understand.
Yep, there it is. Look, I think they're slowly putting one over there. Jeez. Is that your motion, Ms. LeBou? There's the vote.
Six for, 2 against.
Motion carries. You may have the color hair you want in high school. All right. I will now entertain your original motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board approve the proposed 2020-2021 Student Parent Handbook as amended.
I'll second.
Mrs. Centanni has made a motion. Ms. Morrison has seconded. Any public comment on approving the handbook?
Okay, Julia, is it, okay, Julia Reed, LPAE. I did just want to reiterate things I said earlier. I know Ms. Gardner said that there were Zoom meetings, but all of the teachers I talked to personally were either not involved in one and did not know anyone who was involved in said Zoom meetings. So I understand that to keep it manageable, you have to have like a couple representatives from each school, but maybe then there needs to be some clarification to principals in that it is not the principal, like not just the principal and that one person deciding. They should be soliciting feedback from the entire faculty, not just that one person, because I'm sure a lot of time, if I was an administrator, it would be easy to pick somebody who always agreed with me, and not pick someone who's going to disagree with me. So I don't know if they, again, I would request that we could, does it have to be approved today? Because I know that a lot of teachers I talk to are not satisfied that their voices are being heard. I mean, even though that maybe the Zoom meetings did take place. So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment? Any board member comment? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Seven for, one against.
The motion carries. Our next item, as we move on, 4.8, Employee Services, discussion and/or action concerning the high-demand teacher stipend. Mr. Broussard, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. President, I move that the board approves the one-time high-demand teacher stipend for the 2020-2021 school year as set forth in this agenda item.
We have a motion by Mrs. Centanni,
Second.
seconded by Ms. Morrison. Any public comment on this item?
Julia Reed, LPAE. Thank you for hearing me again. Our organization has some concerns around the requirements for teacher attendance. There are no exceptions made for COVID-19 if a teacher is unable to attend school because they or someone in their family has contracted COVID-19, and I'm assuming the school system would not want them to come to work at that point. They would be, therefore, according to this rule, ineligible for this based on something that is just out of their control. My other concern is the possible discriminatory nature of the attendance requirement, especially in gender equity. Male teachers can have a child and not miss school. Female teachers cannot have a child and not miss school. Therefore, this would be applied unevenly according to gender. And I just would ask that the board consider maybe some specific exceptions carved out for a specific type of absences to ensure equity. Because the way I see it, not having a maternity exception is discriminatory based on gender, and COVID-19 could possibly be discriminatory based on race, as is that COVID-19 is, I'm sorry, I'm getting out of breath. Could possibly be race, because people of color are more likely to be exposed to COVID and have more serious consequences of COVID-19 in our state. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any other public comment? Hearing none. Any board member comment? Mr. Broussard, I know you had a comment, sir.
I had a few questions. I do support this, but for some reason, I had $2,500 etched in my mind as far as the stipend for the teachers that we chose. Got a couple of questions to, I guess, the superintendent. It's $1,000 a semester. If the teacher does not return for the next semester, will that teacher be dismissed or put someplace else?
Could you clarify if they're not returning, if they're choosing
Yes.
not to return?
If they choose not to return to that school, what is their consequences?
If they choose not to return to their assignment for the year?
Right.
The consequence, I mean, we don't transfer normally in the middle of the year. If they're requesting a transfer, I mean, it's an individual basis, but if they're not returning, there's no consequence other than they're not returning if they're resigning from their job, Mr. Broussard?
Will they, if they request a transfer after the first semester, will that be honored?
We don't typically honor that. We don't typically honor that unless there's an extenuating circumstance.
Okay. Look, how many teachers do we have returning in that capacity for this year? Just not exact number, just ballpark if you can.
Returning to these positions?
Yes.
I'd have to get that number from, I'll ask our employee services and we can get that information to you.
But we do have some returning.
We absolutely do.
Okay. And if I can, if I can suggest or make a motion after this motion is passed, is that the teachers that are returning would get that, like I said before, the $2,500 stuck in my mind. That extra $500 for teachers that are returning. But the second year teacher, if you were there this year, you would get that extra $500, or if you're returning the first year or second year, it would be an extra $500 for a teacher. What I'm trying to do is trying to get some stability in our schools. When I spoke to someone, one of the problems we're having is that sustainability. We can't get teachers and principals at our schools to stay there more than a year. It's always a turnover, and it's depressing to the students to see new faces every year. It sort of put a damper on them to know that Dr. Shershon been there a year, and then he's not returning. I'm looking forward to going to Miss LeBeau class, and she's not returning. So I'm trying to get some stability for the teachers to stay there, to not only love what they do, but love their school. And I know we're going to do everything humanly possible to keep them there, solving whatever problems that we have. But I'm trying to get them more of an invite form to hold on and work with us so we can build that.
So you're speaking that in addition, Mr. Broussard, to this stipend,
To the
that
second
when
year.
the subsequent years of returning, that
Yes.
there's that.
Yes.
I can tell you that last year, we paid about $53,000 and that was in January, the first semester, when we did the first payout of this stipend pay, about $53,000 worth to teachers who met the criteria in that item.
I think the value of a teacher staying is more valuable than a wing at one of the schools.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. Any other board member comment? Ms. LeBeau?
My only concern with this is La Rosen, because it's not a typical experience where a child is looking forward to having that next year teacher. I don't want to discourage us from incentivizing them. I'm just worried about them being lumped into schools that are more traditional type schools, where this is not a traditional type school. It's actually the school where children are referred to when they have disciplinary issues and they go for a short period of time. So I would just like us to maybe re-examine. I'm fine with them getting the stipend, but maybe re-examine on how they're evaluated versus other teachers, because it's just not I don't think it's a comparable situation that we can really use the same criteria.
Thank you. Dr. Aguilar?
Board members, I would urge you to consider expanding the eligibility of the teachers to include social studies teachers. I'm not sure why they are not part of this endeavor. They are core subject teachers. They have an equal role to play in accountability for the school. Not sure why you're just recognizing English, math, and science. So I would urge you to include social studies teachers.
Yes, sir. The original item last year was, we looked at critical shortage areas originally. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other board member comment? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. Motion carries. Next item that was pulled is 4.9. Discussion and action concerning updated job descriptions for the Human Resources Specialist and Coordinator of Employee Services. I'm not sure who pulled that one. Dr. Aguilar?
I'd like to make a motion that the board approves the revisions to the job descriptions as attached in the public content section of the agenda item for Human Resources Specialist and Coordinator of Employee Services positions. My only question, Ms. Trosclair, is that...
Can I get a second first?
I'll second it. Second.
Mrs. Centennial, thank you, Dr. Aguilar. Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Ms.
That's
Trosclair, these two job descriptions were brought to the board in May. The Human Resource Specialist was pay grade 8. Coordinator of Employee Services was pay grade 5. Tonight we are changing simply the pay grade, no aspect of the job description. We're now asking for the Human Resource Specialist to be pay grade 7, so down 1 pay grade, and the Coordinator of Employee Services pay grade 7 up 2 pay grades. My question is, what happened in the last month for you to choose to change the pay for these two job descriptions?
After filling those positions with the two very deserving candidates, we went back and staff went back and re-examined the roles that each of those ladies would play in the Employee Services Department, equally vital to that department. The ladies themselves agreed that the pay grade should be equal because the responsibilities are equal. The one whose pay grade is coming down actually helped begin some of that conversation.
Any public comment on this item? Any other board member comment on this item? Hearing none, Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote.
Eight for, none against.
Motion carries. Next item, 4.11, Employee Services, discussion and action concerning the nurse practitioner job description and related budget revisions. Dr. Chasson, I'll entertain a motion, sir.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Santani. The motion on the floor will be that the board approves the proposed nurse practitioner job description as attached in the public content section of this agenda item, along with the budget revision of $93,000 in the special revenue fund, medical reimbursement revenues for salary and benefits. Any public comment on this item? Hearing none. Any board member comment? Dr. Shasta?
What's the reason for this position?
The Karen Crow Health Student-Based Clinic, and Ms. Julie Buller is here also, so she can add to it. The Karen Crow Health-Based Clinic was staffed with a doctor provided by LSU Health Center, and we are needing to provide our own physician or nurse practitioner there. And so we will be hiring a nurse practitioner with this job description to support the student health clinic through a self-generated fund. It's not through the general fund.
Okay. Second question. How many health clinics do we have? I know Northside has one.
2.
Okay, so just those 2?
Yes, sir. And that pushes out telemed through there also.
I'm sorry.
Telemed, so
Okay.
to other sites.
What are the sites? NHS.
Ms. Buller, would you come?
Karen Crow.
Southside.
Southside.
We have some assistants coming up, Dr. Chasson.
Okay. I'll
They're
make
the
it quick,
experts.
Mr. Latchley. I'll make it quick.
Hello, Julie
Hello.
Buller, Supervisor of Health Services, and I'm also the administrator for the Karen Crow School-Based Health Center.
Okay.
Y'all can hear me okay?
Is the microphone on, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay,
The green
thank
light's
you.
on,
Yeah.
Just making sure.
How many sites do we have total? Northside, Karen Crow, Southside? What's the 2 telemed sites?
Okay, so our Northside School-Based Health Center is strictly for Northside students.
Okay.
Karen Crow School-Based Health Center, the whole school is Karen Crow Middle. And then we have telemedicine units at Karen Crow Heights, Live Oak, Karen Crow High, and Austin Elementary.
Heights,
And
Live
Southside, and newly Southside.
Heights, Live Oak,
Karen Crow High,
High.
Karen Crow Heights Elementary,
Okay.
Austin, and Southside.
Austin and Southside. Okay.
And
So these sites either have a doctor or a nurse practitioner? Is that why we need a nurse practitioner there?
so let me just give a little history on our staffing pattern. When we first opened up Karen Crow School-Based Health Center,
Okay.
we opened it up, and this is through my research because I've been here a long time, but I was not the administrator or the nursing supervisor at that time.
Right.
We opened it up in 2010 at Karen Crow Middle with the assistance of Opelousas General. They provided us a nurse practitioner and a medical director, a physician, and a medical assistant. We only had an RN that was a Lafayette Parish employee. And they also provided a social worker. So then we had that staffing pattern was for about 2 years, if my research is correct. Then we established a MOU with LSU through UHC, and then we, during that staffing pattern, we had a physician who was also our medical provider and our medical director.
Okay.
So that person served as both. And then we, let me look at my little notes because I wasn't. And we still maintained, we still had an RN as the RN in the clinic, and then we hired a medical director and a social worker.
Okay. Well, let me see if I can get straight to it. I'm trying to see why we need a nurse practitioner there versus what we have everywhere else. So what does Northside's Health Center have?
Northside's Health Center has a nurse practitioner.
Nurse practitioner. Okay.
Yes, who is also the medical provider.
Okay.
The whole Northside School-Based Health Center employees are funded by Our Lady of
Our
Lourdes.
Lady of Lourdes, yes, ma'am.
Yes, so we don't have any employees that are LPSS employees at the Northside School-Based Health Center.
Okay, so the sites that service the kids, they all have someone that can prescribe medicine? And do they prescribe medicine?
For the Karen Crowe School-Based Health Center?
No, just for all of our health centers, do they all have someone that can prescribe medicine? Let me start with that as the first question.
Miss Charlena Comine has
Okay.
been the nurse at the Karen Crowe School-Based Health Center for the last 7 years.
Okay.
I think she may be able to explain a little
Okay.
bit better, maybe your question.
Yeah, so again, the question is, for each one of the health center sites, whether through telemedicine or not, do we have someone at each one of those sites that can prescribe medicine?
Not exactly. So my name's Charlena Comine. I've been the nurse for 7 years at the School-Based Health Center. We've had a provider at the School-Based Health Center. And the provider is connected to those students through telemedicine, so kind of like a Zoom meeting, but with the nurse facilitating the visit. So that student is one-on-one with the nurse on that side. So we use an electronic medical record system so that everything is streamlined. That previously a doctor, was the provider, and she was definitely able to prescribe medications to students she saw in person as well as students she saw via telemedicine.
So the doctor telemedicine can prescribe, but
correct. Nurses actually can also see students, not exactly independently, but using standing orders. So the doctor isn't actually involved in every visit hands-on.
Okay.
There are certain, things like headaches and stomach aches and menstrual cramps, and more simple, basic, judgment is needed where we can follow standing orders, and that's just the nurse and the student.
Okay.
And medication can be given, but not prescribed.
Okay.
Does that answer?
Well, somewhat.
Okay.
So for each one of these sites, is there someone that can prescribe medicine on each one of these sites? I'm trying to reason out why the nurse practitioner versus a registered nurse versus LPN. So I'm trying to figure.
Sure.
If you say a nurse practitioner is at Northside, okay, well, we need one at Karen Crowe. I'm trying to see
we previously had a medical director who was also a physician, who was the provider and medical director.
Okay.
And so
But
for cost savings,
at what? Wait, hold on. Let me. My question is, how many sites do we have total? 6.
Lafayette Parish School System is the sponsor of one host site and 5 telemedicine sites.
Okay, 1 host site, 5 telemedicine. At these 6 sites, is there someone at these 6 sites, 5 telemedicine, 1 host, that can prescribe medicine?
They all have access to someone who can prescribe. It's the one provider at the host school.
Yeah. The one provider at the host school. The host school is?
Karen Crowe Middle.
Karen Crowe Middle. All right, this is for, what school is this for again?
Well, it's a Karen Crowe School-Based Health Center located at Karen Crowe Middle School.
Okay, so that one Karen Crowe base host site. So we lost the nurse practitioner there?
So no, we had a doctor who was both the provider and the medical director, but we no longer have that MOU in place with LSU. And so there's cost savings associated. A nurse practitioner is going to be less cost than a medical director physician would be. Also, it kind of allows us to just be able to not close as often. Anytime that doctor who was serving a dual role was out, the clinic was closed. Having a structure where we have a nurse practitioner and having medical director as a backup, the nurse can continue to utilize the standing orders when, say, the nurse practitioner may be out sick themselves.
That's it. All right. Any other questions? Madam Secretary, I'll call the vote.
8 for, none against.
Motion carries. Next item, discussion and our action concerning budget revision and capital improvements funds for Acadiana High School athletic facilities repairs. That's number 4.25. You pulled that one, Dr. Chasson?
Mr. Latchley, maybe you can answer for me. What type of
I'm gonna need a
motion to
motion.
approve?
Okay.
Second.
All right. Dr. Chasson has made a motion. Ms. Morrison has approved. The motion is that the board approves a budget revision increase in the amount of $47,000 in the capital improvement fund for a new budgeted project line item, Acadiana High School athletic facilities repairs, with offsetting transfers from the contingency allowance budget line item. Go ahead with your question, Dr. Chasson. I have your answer waiting for you.
Maybe you can answer for me. Your scoreboard, it's a Pepsi or a Coke scoreboard?
It's an Acadiana school board.
It's no Acadiana bottling, doesn't sponsor it?
They paid a portion of it.
Right.
But the majority of it was paid for by the school through a donation. And it's, what's broken on it is the right panel.
Yeah,
And portions.
the individual scoreboards are serviced and repaired by Pepsi bottling and Coca-Cola as well, similar to Northside scoreboards as well. So my question is, if there's damage, if they replace it, Billy, you may be familiar with it. I'm trying to see if we can save some money with that, if we actually even reached out to them, because I know for a fact that they do it, because they replaced Northsides.
We can pull the contract and see what it states.
Yeah, because the agreement is normally for so many years. We get so much money
Right.
for them to
Right.
have the name and rights to the scoreboard, and they service and fix and repair the scoreboards for us. They send someone out. So maybe we can save a few $1,000s if we could get somebody to check into that. Thank you, sir.
I'll have to ask for public comment first, if there was any public comment on this item. Sorry. Okay, any further board member comment? Mr. Broussard?
A question is, the wind damage caused and tornado and stuff, do we not have insurance to cover that?
It's $1 million policy, is my understanding.
It's $1 million deductible.
Deductible, yeah. No.
Mr. Latchley?
Per incident.
953,000 away.
Mr. Latchley, is
Yes.
it the visitor side scoreboard? Do we need to fix that part?
It's,
Or was it the home side?
it's the home side where,
Oh,
all
we
the,
need to
where,
fix
all
that
the, where all
then.
the points are scored.
Oh, we need to fix that then.
We only average like 50 points a year.
I thought if it was
a
the
game
visitor
like
side, I
that.
said we could save a couple $1,000s and just.
No. In fact, what I
They don't
want to
even
do.
turn it on.
Just
They don't
put
even
a
turn the visitor
chalkboard.
side
Visitor
on.
side, we don't even turn on. Actually, on our scoreboard, I want to go to 3 digits because 2's not enough.
Can
We're
we
gonna-
flip home and visitor, maybe?
We can
And
just
then,
include it into one.
Dude, man.
Any other board member comment? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. But I thank you for that, Ms. LeBou.
See, I was going to say the visitor side still shows only 0, which is good enough.
That's fine. That's about all they're going to score this year.
They don't have light bulbs in the scoreboard on the visitor side. They don't.
I mean, Dr. Chasson, just to amuse you, we played the 3 Calcasieu Parish schools in Calcasieu Parish this year, and we outscored them like 250 to 80. Seriously.
8 for, none
That's
against.
Motion carries. So we just had, sorry, ladies and gentlemen, we just got to amuse ourselves. It's getting late. And I do apologize to our architects, engineers, and everybody sit here. Next item is 4.27. Here we go. Discussion and or action concerning approval of hiring Poche Pruitt Associates LLC as a consultant to the board and the superintendent. I don't remember who pulled that one.
I move
I
that.
did.
Oh,
Oh, yeah.
you have a motion?
I do.
Go ahead.
I'd like to make a motion to defer the hiring of Poche Pruitt and Associates LLC as consultant for the board until representatives of the Lafayette Parish School Board and/or administration or staff attend the free qualifications-based selection workshop put on by the American Institute of Architects.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Dr. Aguilar.
Can I explain a little bit?
I'm going to ask for public comment first.
Sorry.
Any public comment on this item?
Sure. Let me read it off.
Can I bring it to her?
Oh.
Can we bring it to her? Is it written out?
Yeah.
And being we had no public comment, I'll let you go ahead and comment.
See if she can understand my handwriting. So I spent some time on the phone today with Kathleen Gordon, who is the executive director of the American Institute of Architects out of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. They conduct free quality-based selection workshops, and they've done this with several school boards throughout the state and other public entities. My understanding is we're hiring a consultant and paying a consultant to sit with us and figure out what it is exactly that we want in our selection process. And I was told tonight, you know, they may come sit with you and ask you what you want. I don't know what I want because I haven't been educated on this issue. Or I feel like our facilities committee would be greatly improved on giving the qualifications that they're looking for, or the fine-tuning in the selection process that I think a lot of us are looking for, if they go through a workshop like this where it is putting best practices in your hands so you can see how to properly select an architect or other professional that we're hoping to employ. I know that it has been very beneficial to other school boards, and I just think if what we're truly looking for is some guidance on best practices to select the best individuals who can use our tax dollars wisely, it's incumbent upon us to first be educated before we hire somebody to work with to try to educate them on what we want. I just don't think we're in a position to clearly define what it is that we're seeking until we go through this workshop. It is free. It's no cost to us. They will come to us. All they need is a room and some PowerPoint and a couple days. So, I just really would encourage us to defer hiring a consultant. They said they can, I asked them the timeline and how much heads up they need to get the seminar and workshop put in place. They said they can it's on an as needed basis, so they're pretty, they're used to putting these things on very rapidly. So we shouldn't have much delay in deferral of hiring a consultant if we request that they come do this program with us. We select the right individuals to be in that room, whether that's staff or board members or whoever, and then we can turn around, and if we feel like we still want to hire a consultant, we can do that even at the next board meeting. So I just want to put that information in everybody's hands because I wanted to let you know there is an educational resource that's free, and it's right on topic of what we're looking for before we jump into hiring and paying for a consultant. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. LeBeau. Any other board member comment on this item? Mrs. Centani.
Mr. President, Ms. LeBeau, thank you very much for that motion. And I received the letter from the AIA today, and I was very heartened to see that they provide that service and that it comes at an opportune time for this board and this school system as we work to put forth more rigorous and fair procedures for our construction process. I don't know exactly what I want. I don't. But part of the consultant's job would be, in my vision, in my idea, in my mind, to talk to us who are not professional construction managers or architects or engineers, but we were elected to do a job of setting a vision for the construction program for the school system. Certainly, all of us have some idea of, what the needs in our districts are, And certainly, we all have opinions on what the philosophies of fiscally funding these programs are, these construction projects are. Those are the kinds of things that the proposed consultant has experience working with school boards in the state, including one neighboring parish for a number of years, and can interview not only our staff, but us, as well as local architects, and working with the AIA, and coming back to us with concrete policy proposals and procedure changes, recommending those to the superintendent that the board does not have authority over, recommending those to the board that the board does have authority over. And then we can have a robust discussion that I would like us to have as far as where do we want to go as a community, and everyone can have input and everyone can have involvement. I would be thrilled to have this as a part of it. I would, because I think there is a lot of value in educating me personally, and probably most of us, on the qualification-based selection process, because in the meeting 3 months ago, that's all I heard was that the fishbowl is the opposite of qualification-based selecting. And so I think that's something that we all want. I think everyone in the audience would be, certainly all those who love to compete would, right? Because I love to compete. And if I'm not selected and you tell me it's because I'm not good enough, I'm okay with that, especially if it's true. So with that, I'll say, Mr. President, I offer a substitute motion that the board hires Poche Pruitt Associates LLC as consultants to the board and superintendent regarding policies, procedures, and processes relating to the school system construction projects.
A second.
I have a motion by Mrs. Santani, seconded by Ms. Morrison. Any public comment on the substitute motion? Come on up, sir. Please state your name and make your comments.
Good afternoon. Eric Crozier, ACSW Architects. Was it not on? Okay. It's almost the morning. I do think that giving the AIA an opportunity and ACEC an opportunity to come in, I mean, what harm could it do for you? We'll work with them. We'll work with Jimmy. We'll work with whoever you need and whoever you want to hire to get the right system in place for you. I just don't know what it can hurt to just give that a shot. So you always have that to fall back on, and we would just encourage you to look at it very, very, very hard. We do need another system, and we're ready to help as well. There's other firms in town that are ready to help as well too. Like I said before, we respond to these often, and there's other criteria out there for you to look at. But I think an education of the board is step one for sure. So consider it. I think it would be something that you would get a lot out of, and you always have the other backups option too. So thank you.
Any other public comment? Thank you, sir. Any board member comment? Dr. Aguilar?
Board members, I'm personally not comfortable with the language to hire an individual without seeing a contract, without discussion about what deliverables to expect. And so I would offer an amendment that this hiring is subject to the board approving a final contract. I'm also happy to discuss what we want the consultant to do, because I understand it's vague, but I think there's also Mr. Poche is here. I think there's also some expectation that he's going to listen to the conversation and kind of get his direction both from us and the superintendent. So,
if you'd like to make a substitute motion, or if you'd like to ask Mrs. Santani, I don't think so. I think you can maybe ask Mrs. Santani to include that in his motion. We're going by the wording and the recommendation that came from the Facilities Committee.
And the Facilities Committee was being very, very open-ended with bringing two items for your consideration tonight. We recognize that what we sent you was not quite all of the detail necessary.
Mr. Centennial?
No, sir. I'll take a vote on my motion.
Okay. Any other board member?
Mr.
Mr. Broussard, didn't see you.
Yes. I agree. The contract has not been developed yet to hire anyone. When the contract is done, he may not be one of the ones, may not want to be one of the ones who is advising us. But I do not see the harm in us sitting listening to this workshop. It would educate us more on what we want, what we need, what we're looking for. So even if we will hire someone to guide us in what we want, the workshop would not harm. The contract has not been developed. I'm hoping that the facilities committee and or the board would look at the contract before the final signature to see if there's some of the things on it that we are looking for. And Mr. Porsche may not want to be a part of that. So I think we should leave the name open to allow him an opportunity to either to decline the contract working with us or not. But I would, before we move on, I would get the advice of Mr. LeBoux to take it to work, to attend the workshop, or let the workshop come here and develop a contract for the consultant, and let whoever approved the contract by us looking over it, because some things in there that we want to share before we make our final decision.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. Any other board member comment? Dr. Chasson.
I just wanted to state that respectfully, I don't need, I've been on the board for 10 years, and I don't need a workshop to take consultation from a tenured, well-respected person who has more years experience than me to help us with our construction programs in LPSS when it comes to change orders that are astronomical, change orders we've seen, change orders we haven't seen, many change orders that have come before, like former presidents, that they have a right to sign knowing we're going to go ahead and proceed. There's change orders that come left and right. I don't need a workshop to tell me that these individual qualifications and expertise for an RFP, that we want to see a correct process. I'd rather see all of that as soon as possible than the fishbowl process. That was my only thing, and I just stumbled upon it. I didn't know. When we asked, we pull them out of fishbowl. So we've entered into other contracts. I mean, we've got an HVAC contract right after this that we're gonna proceed on pending a final contract negotiation. There was something earlier, pending final contract negotiation. So I'd like to see us proceed forward, because we've danced around this. Everybody knows what we want. It's just there's some folks that are fighting for it, some folks fighting against it, and it's whether you want some guidance and not a fishbowl. That's all we're voting on, hiring a consultant to help us out with that. So I support this.
Thank you, Dr. Chasson. Any other board member comment?
So, Mr. President, I'd like to offer a substitute motion that we...
Point of order, Mr. President.
We can't substitute.
I don't think we can. We can't do a substitute motion on a substitute motion. This is the
right. This would have to fail first, or a friendly amendment.
Ms. LeBoux, one more comment.
I'm going to keep it short. I just what I'm proposing would not just be for the board to attend, not just facilities to attend, but I think staff and administration as well. So I just think it behooves us to have an impartial, professional come in and show us what has worked well and how we can better manage and use our money so that we don't have change order after change order down the road. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Any other board member comment? Mr. Broussard.
I'm not objecting to either. I'm just saying that the contract has not been drawn yet, and educating ourselves as we go to these conferences to educate ourselves on the things we do. It will not harm us to sit and listen to experts, whoever, and still entertain a contract with whoever decides to sign the contract. So that's what I'm saying. The contract is fine, but educating ourselves as to the needs we should be doing for our constituents is one thing. But until we come up with a contract, a dollar amount, a to-do list, whenever that be, and I don't know who is going to be responsible for that, for us to look over to either suggest, disapprove, or approve. Educating ourselves would be a feather in our head.
Thank you, Mr. Broussard. Any other board member comment? Ms. Morrison?
I agree, but nothing's going to be finalized until we approve the contract. I would like to attend the workshop before we vote on the contract, just for my, information. So I don't oppose to that. So I think it would be good, especially for the board members that haven't had the experience of 10 years or more with the consultant. So I think that's a great idea. So I just wanted to confirm that it's not final until the contract comes before us and we agree what's in it. And at that time, we'll have the information, the education from the workshop to look for what's in the contract and what's not in the contract.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more time, Ms. LeBeau.
Point of clarification, is this a contract that the board will have to approve at the next meeting? Or whenever? No. See, that I think that some board members are confused, thinking that we are going to actually all vote on a contract with a consultant. If we vote on this, we are voting to hire them, and the contract will be negotiated separately. And that is why I wanted to defer voting on hiring until we know what we wanted to hire. Thank you.
Okay. Any other board member comment? I'm gonna make my comments. This has been going on since February. This architectural firm or whatever that wants to give the class is great. I'm gonna go to the class. I'm gonna vote to approve this tonight because they came in at the last minute. Where have they been the last 4 months? There are people out there for this. There are people out there against this. We need to make a decision. We need to move forward. We've been working on this. We've been looking at this. Every time we get to a meeting, there's another obstacle placed in the way. We keep hearing a sense of urgency of getting to these small projects. We're not going to get to them till we get this situation resolved. I'm going to vote to support hiring Mr. Poche. I'm going to go to the class. We're going to move forward. We're not drawing names out of fish bowls. This came from the Facilities Committee, open like it did. If the Facilities Committee wanted it closed or tighter, it should have came from the Facilities Committee tighter, not to be once again broken apart tonight. And I think that's where we as a board, not just this board, but over the years have failed in continuously beating the same horse to death. We need to move forward. We need to hire Mr. Poche. We need to go to the architectural class. We need to state to these people and our staff what we want moving forward, how we want it, and how it's going to be done, and not worry about who likes it and who doesn't like it. With that being said, I'm going to call for the vote, Madam Secretary.
Six for, 2 against.
Motion carries. We have 2 items left. One is 4.28 facilities discussion and or action concerning an RFQ process for the selection of architects and engineers. I don't remember who pulled it. I will entertain a motion.
Motion, Mr. President, motion to approve. You pull it, yeah.
We have a motion from Mr. Broussard. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ms. LeBeau. The motion is that the board approves the RFQ process to include selection of architects and engineers based on qualifications and expertise, along with a tiered approach to project assessment. And this was sent to us by the Facilities and Transportation Committee. They voted to send this to us. Any public comment on this item? Come on up, sir, and state your name, please.
Got it. Charles Beasley, Architects Beasley Moyer. Qualifications-based selection has been around for years. The federal government uses it, the state uses it, and there's just a bunch of different criteria. I think with what you just passed on the previous motion, to pass this motion would mean that you would be directing Mr. Poche toward developing qualifications-based selection process. And that means that the AIA, the ACSC engineering group have all volunteered our services to serve on that and to help with that. And I think that would still be a very good opportunity for the AIA to come in and do the workshop, to teach and to educate y'all on different methods of doing this. And when you throw in the tiered method, you have another layer of complication which has to be thought out very carefully. So I would just suggest that you go ahead and do the workshop to develop a policy for selection of architects for big and small projects. Thank you.
Any other public comment? You can come up, sir.
I'm good. I think there's a misconception about the presentation I made at the committee versus what my intended purpose of the contract is. And I'm going to read you a little statement of what I have, because I was invited to come here to make a proposal to the board based on some board members' request. I met the superintendent one time and she asked a few questions, and I gave her some material of the way that I approach facility planning and management with other clients that I've dealt with before. I am not interested in developing an RFP process. In fact, I talked to Mr. Santini this afternoon and forwarded him the letter that the AIA sent to all of the architects and engineers in the community, informing them that they know that this was going on, and volunteering their services as an organization, not to train the board members, but in my mind, and they've done it before for this board and for other boards around the state, and the national organization does the same thing and supports them, to let the organization ask the architects, and almost every architect and engineer in Lafayette belongs to AIA or CEC or LES, ask those organizations to put together a program to develop what they feel would be appropriate for the Lafayette Parish School Board, and recommend something to you as a professional organization. Those are the organizations that we belong to as professionals, and they help guide us in dealing with public issues like this. So the contract, I do not want a contract to develop an RFP. This is a process that can be developed by a combination of the other architects in the community with their professional organization, selecting who's going to volunteer to give you some recommendations. So just to have a few people volunteer that's going to help you develop a selection committee, I think is possibly the wrong approach. But I was going to leave this up to, and that's why I talked to Mrs. Santini, to this organization to recommend how to approach developing an RFP process for the board. My suggestion is to assist the administration and board with expansion of the short and long-term facility planning, design, and delivery process. And the key issue that the board members have discussed with me in asking me to facilitate a liaison between the administration and the staff and the board is to support a short-term and long-term process which supports the educational goals of the community. We're going to be on a fact-finding mission. We don't know what the contract is about because I don't know what the board members have as a vision. I don't know what the superintendent has as a vision. And my concept is to help y'all develop a vision of where you want to be, not to tell you how to do it. For a contract of under $50,000, when I just finished doing a $500,000 project for the school board with a ridge addition, would be ridiculous for me to come in and try to give you directions on how to select me or anybody else to do a project. That being the case, I just as soon stay and y'all develop the process and I'll just apply for the work. Because the last one I did, we received the highest ranking out of 15 firms to be selected to do a project, and we got to do the project by picking it out of a fishbowl. And I agree with y'all, and it's no reflection on Kyle or anybody else here. It's just the process needs to be looked at to see if there's something better for the community. So I don't intend to develop an RFP process. I mentioned to the attorney that was here last at the committee meeting, I don't intend to do anything that creates a conflict of interest with me continuing my working relationship with the board, unless after working with us as a pilot program, they would feel they'd like us to expand our services in a different fashion, and we maybe waive our ability to apply for projects if there's a substantial enough value of our firm to the board. So this is a small project that I think can really add some vision to the board and the administration and the staff. And that's what it's all about. We're not doing an RFP process analysis for the board.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment? Any board member comment? All right. Hearing none, we'll call for the vote. Come up twice. No. I voted twice.
Four against.
If I'm correct, it means the motion fails. It's a push. The final agenda item tonight, 4.30 facilities, discussion and or action concerning the facility environment and mechanical system, HVAC, maintenance agreement. Who pulled that? Dr. Chasson.
Motion to approve.
I need a second. Second by Mr. Angel. The motion would be that the board approves. Make sure I got the right one. Well, it's a long one. Sorry. Here we go again. That the board awards the contract for zones 1, 3, 4, and 4 for facility environmental mechanical services systems, HVAC, maintenance agreement to Bernhard MCC, and awards the contract for zone 2 for facility environmental and mechanical systems, HVAC, maintenance agreement to Star Services Incorporated of Baton Rouge, and authorizes the board president and superintendent to enter into 5-year contract agreements pending on successful final contract negotiations by the board president and superintendent. That is the motion. Is there any public comment on this motion? Any board member comment on this motion?
Just a clarification, will the final contract come before us, or this is our approval of it for the contract? Okay, thank you.
This is your approval. Mr. Broussard.
In our discussions, we pointed out several things. This contract for 5 years for both firms, what I understand is a turnkey job. Does that include the wings that we added on? Is that all inclusive, or will that come back to us with an additional dollar amount for the maintenance of the wings that we're adding on to all the schools?
It includes the wings, sir.
So if this is a turnkey job.
Correct.
So we look at this again in 2025.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other board member comment?
One more question following up with that, if you don't mind, Mr. President.
Go ahead.
I know that now we're contemplating 1 or 2 portable buildings to stay at some of the schools for various reasons, whether it's storage or some kind of overflow. Is that included in this contract as well?
Mrs. Santani.
Window units and control systems are included in the contract language.
Thank you.
Any other board member comment? Madam Secretary, I'll call for the vote. Okay. And after the vote, we have Mr. Angel has a question. I'll ask that we sit tight.
Is it saying me?
Eight for, none against.
Motion carries. Mr. Angel, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I'd like to ask a question, and if I'm out of order, just shut me up. Mr. Guidry, I was wondering if you could give us a detailed amount of the number of projects that we completed, whereby we hired architectural firms, the amount of the project, and the amount that the architectural firm received. Say for the last 3 years.
You'd like that for the next facility committee meeting or the next board meeting?
Whatever. I mean, I don't want to put you in a bond. Whatever.
Okay.
Whichever one's easier for you.
We'd be happy to prepare that. Sure.
Thank you.
Mr. Angel, I think that'll work. Our next board meeting is July 22nd, so they would have plenty of time to, we could put it as an informational item if you'd prefer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Next time, the button's at the bottom of the mic.
Yes, sir. And the only thing I'm really concerned about at this late hour is if I've got to pick what stock somewhere in the work tomorrow. I'm just all confused. I don't have to pick, right? Appropriate.
You can pick in the
Yeah,
dark.
yes, I'm sorry. My company requires it. This meeting is adjourned.